Right, what's up, everyone? Hey, Tom Brewer, how's it going? Good to see you, mate. I'll just start off by introducing the galactic signature for the day, which is a rhythmic seed. I actually don't have my calendar with me. I might go and get it shortly. But today's galactic signature is a rhythmic seed, which is guided by flowering, which is associated with the second chakra on that calendar. And also it's a total lunar eclipse today too. And today, numerologically, is a number 9. We've got Tuesday, Mars Day, obviously March the 3rd, 2026. Awesome. Thank you, Esme. So yeah, this is the calendar I was talking about. So I hope everyone can see this. Nope. Which one is it? That one. There. So March the 3rd, yellow rhythmic seed. This is the galactic calendar. So I just got it. I got it for did I get it for my birthday or Christmas? I can't remember. But anyway, I haven't really looked too much into like what it is, but it seems very interesting. I know, Franklin, you came across it in like the early 2000s, and I think it's like the way I'm just using it currently at the moment is just to see like what kind of energy the day brings. And because it's a yellow rhythmic seed, I thought, I'll wear yellow today. I'll roll with that because it's not just a Tuesday. There's always more to the day in which we're in. There's always more to everything. And I always try to look at like the essence, what's behind stuff. So yeah, it's a pretty cool calendar. And today is a lunar eclipse as well. So what comes to mind is like the seed and the fruit. And today we're going to be talking about the empire, which of course is the electromagnetic fire at its core. The empire rules over us out in outside and also inside of us too. We've allowed the empire to kind of rule over us because our mind's been split. Like we've been divided on all levels. So, you have the red-blue divide, left, right, whereas the empire have always used purple, which is a balance of both. And that is the middle way, the third pillar. So like they carve their world how they want it, while we're kind of just left behind in the dark, walking in circles, repeating the same patterns, same cycles. So yeah, with this eclipse in Virgo as well, which is conjunct the South Node, which happens every 19 years, what came to mind when I was listening to this podcast is what needs to be eliminated. Like there's a lot of fresh energy. Like we've just gone from a wood snake number 9 year now to a fire horse, which is a number 1 or a 10, however you look at it. And of course, today we have this eclipse. There's lots of fresh energy today, and it being a Tuesday, Mars Day, that's to do with action. So we can either act with our ions, with our energy, like we can either have action, or we can carry on being actors and just pretending. So we can carry on. Thank you. And I guess the axiom comes to mind there as well with the action and the acting. And I can't remember what axiom means, but I'm sure it's going to be very relevant to that. Yeah. So, yeah. You all good there, Franklin?
Solid? Yeah, brother. Big nice. Love, big blessings. So, yeah, axiom. That's interesting, X in the middle. X. And we know what an axe is. An axe is sort of like It's also related, I think, to the divine lightning deities, just like the hammer is. Obviously, it's what chops down trees, so it's related to the axis mundi, you know. That's why we call it an axe, because it chops down the axis mundi, down the tree. And yam, yam. That's quite an interesting term. I'm not quite sure where that would find its roots. I mean, if we break it down from a Phoenician, looking at it, okay, we know who Ea is. That's Enki. And the brings the water resonance of the feminine, the divine feminine, the element of water. And you know, the axis mundi, the central pillar, middle pillar, if you will, the shashumna. So it's an interesting word. And it, you know, this actually was something that was on my mind. I was in a group on Telegram the other day, and in this group, you know, the people were talking about how, oh, like, you guys need to listen, you guys need to wake up, you need to realize, you know, this Phoenician overlords, the black magicians, the Sumerians, they've taken control of our world and they're ruling us. It's like, dude, there's a lot of racism being pushed on the planet at the moment, and the racism isn't very positive. Give me 1 second. Josh! Oh my gosh. Josh is pouring water all over the cockatiels outside. That little bugger's going to cry. He's going to cry, baby. He's going to cry. You go into your school, and if I catch you doing that to the birds again, I will ban you from your tablet for so long that your tears won't wash away. Now, don't talk to me and go and do your thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There we go. He needs discipline. When I see him messing with the animals like that, me no impressed. Me no impressed at all.
With racism, just really, yeah. I'll let you finish that first. But just before we move on, I just wanted to mention racism.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah. I'll just finish what I was saying. Was there's this push towards the racism, and there are these ideas in the occult field that we should point fingers at the Jews, right? That we should point fingers at these people. Yes, these ancient bloodlines, but, you know, the Zionists are a fraternity, they're an organization, and don't get me wrong, there's nobody that's innocent. Anywhere where there's ever been a king or a queen or a ruler, they are part of it. You want to go to Indian nobility? Who were the Aryans? You want to go and look at any place on the world where there's been kings and rulers, emperors, they're all part of this proverbial cabal. It's a global, stretching all over the world. We don't know what shape the world is. I don't pretend to know, but the whole world is under a single hand. And those countries that aren't so much involved, like that are trying to break away, we know who they are because they get bombed all the time, right? Yeah, brother, what were you going to say?
I just wanted to mention with racism, I think that there are races potentially that we don't know about or that aren't in the common psyche. People think black, white, you know, brown, whatever. That's what race is. But you have the human race, which is humanity, which people forget because we're all of this. This other racism is shoved down our throats all the time. Black, white, this, that, divided. Whereas we all need to remember that we're all humanity and that there is a force at play against humanity. And with racism, what comes to mind is Ras, Ion. Ras is the head, right? So it's so with the Ras, Ion, the race, that doesn't really work. Actually, in my head, it made sense. I was trying to think of what race is. Race and ras is to do with the head and just our mind. And I think that really there probably was a time when we didn't have racism, is my point. There's probably a time when I believe in my heart that there was a worldwide civilization and we all got along, and something came into this realm from somewhere else. Some call it Wetiko, mind virus, but that's how it gets in, is through the mind. And we can see it playing out now, just being, magnified now. But I do think that we just need to remember that we're all team human, and there is an anti-human agenda, which we would call the AI or the artificial now, demonic, Satan, Ahriman, whatever you want to call it. So I need to mention that.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things I want to blow it out of the water. Firstly, this idea that the Sumerians were evil and that everybody else is good. Right. All of these ancient cultures it comes from a single culture. It's very important to understand this. There was a single culture, and that single culture at some point was good, and then there was a split of culture, and the split of culture started to gain power, right? So if you remember the book that we did a reading of by Dion Fortune, it's here. It references, quite interestingly enough, these ancient stories. And I think there's a lot of bread to that salad. I know it doesn't sound weird. A lot of bread in that salad. It's something digestible, something solid. And you'll find these same ideas will be mirrored in the Vedic school of thought as well. They speak about how when the Aryan arrived, and the Aryan became a part of the culture. So there were two different cultures, like on Earth. And the Aryan became what we know as the Brahmin in India. And they took hold of the ancient knowledge, and the caste system came into being, where the 4 different races of the Earth were all sort of locked in. So the most racist place I've ever been on Earth is India, without a doubt. There is no place on Earth that equals the racism, and I'm not talking about institutionalized racism like we've got in South Africa. South Africa has extreme institutionalized racism, but when you walk out on the street, it's brothers and sisters, black, white, colored, Indian, whatever your race. We are probably a lot less racist than London, I can tell you that much. A lot less racist than London. London, everybody's in their little factions. People get along, they tolerate each other, but if you're out of your faction, if you're not in your neighborhood, you feel a little bit out of place sometimes. That's London for you. South Africa, that's not the case. And this is ironic because we are so not racist, we have to have institutionalized racism, right? So this is an interesting point. They have to teach us, they're training us to become racist. And we've got politicians at the moment that are training the population to become racist because it's not in our natural. There are racist elements that are quite strong when it comes to territory. You'll find that the Zulu people just basically unalive the Malawi people when they come to their zones. But that's because that's heavy cultural differences, really, and that there's other elements, financial elements that are being put into that injection. So that's not specifically racism. It's about coming to our space and taking our jobs and taking our money, which isn't quite the same as racism, right? And so we lump everything together. But the kind of racism that we're experiencing now in the occult field and in the spiritual field, and namaste, Our Tuition, how are you doing? Tom Rue, we got you in the house. Our Tuition, I hope you guys are well. I hope you guys are thriving. Everybody else in the chat, big love, big blessings to you. So this idea, first idea, I want to shoot this thing down faster than you can ever shoot it down. That everybody was of a black skin color, and that these evil white people arrived later. Okay, I've never heard a bigger load of bullshit in my life, and I have to call it out. The ancient stories contradict this heavily. The ancient histories contradict this heavily. In fact, here's what the ancient stories do say. The ancient stories, and you can track this back in India, you can track this back, certain of the groups who had a propensity to be down further south on the planet, certain of the groups were further up north. The Aryan were normally up in the north, right? The Aryan people. the very black-skinned people were down in the southern parts of the planet, and there was a great ruling space called, or there was a great empire or civilization is a better word, called the Bharat civilization. And you can track this. The southern part, obviously Africa, is where a lot of the darkest skinned people would have been centralized. Northern Europe, northern steppes would have been a lot of the Aryan people. And then the other two groups would have been mingled across with a lot of the more red-skinned people in the northern, the sort of northern parts, and the yellow-skinned people were furthest to the east. And these are the four castes, right? Now, when you look at the Sumerian story, you find a very interesting story here. The Sumerian story is very specific. It speaks about, you know, and there's a number of really good translations out there to stem from. I actually wrote an article in a group to clarify this for some people a while ago. So one of the great ones, one of the great writers was, what was his name? Thor. Can't quite think of his name right now. Let's go back. Well, I'll find it for you as I speak here. Okay, here we go. We found some of them. Jacobson was one of the pioneer and premier translators. Then there's Arno Fubols, another great Sumerian translator. But Thorkild Jacobson was like very early times before they had completely worked out this scene. Arno Pubal was also 1914 publication, also early times. Then there's Samuel Noah Kramer. He was also worked extensively on this. They all agreed unanimously, and I want to be clear on this. I want you guys to listen to what I'm saying. All the great translators of all Sumerian literature, other than the new woke people from the last 15 years, which are completely worked out, they all the experts agreed unanimously that a Shah was 3,600, nothing else. Now, they had their own philosophical ideas related to how human beings could live for thousands of years, so they had a problem. So we've got the King's List that goes back and speaks to us about hundreds of thousands of years of heritage, of kings. So these kings were ruling the planet. They were not Sumerians. I want to be clear. Sumerian language came way later, just like the Norse language came way later, just like the Sanskrit language came way later. These were post-Diluvian, way much more modern languages. I don't think the Sumerian language is more than 10 or 20,000 years old. I think there were precursor languages prior to that we have no evidence of. And 100,000 years ago, who knows what they were using? 200,000 years ago, 300,000 years ago, who knows what they were using? It's a long time. Records get wiped out. Stones wither in the sand, in the dust, in the wind. Papyrus doesn't last. Nothing lasts that long. So anyway, the ancient stories, as all of these people, these great translators, so it's not just Zechariah Stitchin, although when you compare Zechariah Stitchin to their translations, most of it is bang on and it's almost word for word. Interesting. So there's a big psyop here. They want us to believe some weird nonsense that they've given us. They want to change a lot of this information. We've seen this. History is being changed. Everything's being rewritten. But the unanimous idea is that many tens of thousands of years ago, at least, there was the Great Flood. And prior to the Great Flood, there was a story that the 200 Ijiji came to Earth, right? And the 200 Ijiji were part of workers. They are described using the word, they were the workers that were brought here from Nibiru. That's what it says, verbatim, right? Whatever else you hear, it's woke crap. Go and take a look at the original translations. It's getting harder and harder to find it. The sooner you do it, the better. I was trying to look for a little while ago. I was shocked at how hard it was to actually find it. I used to find the text.
Another name for them would be watchers or angels as well, right?
Yes, the Grigori. That's the Greek word, which is the same word.
Angels is key in this, because
yes,
I think angels. What are angels?
Well, they were some of the angels.
Okay.
So all of the angels were here, and some of the angels, specifically 200 of them, came down to the earth. And they were a particular order of angels, not just any one. The Grigori, the Igigi. Now, the Igigi, according to the Sumerian texts, they were 20 cubits. They were 16 to 24 cubits in stature, or 16 to 20 cubits, where the other Sumerians were 10 to 14 cubits. They specified cubits. We know what a cubit is. It's more than a foot. They were tall. They were big. But the Igigi, the Grigori, were particularly big. They were the biggest. They were having a hard time on earth. Then we also have records of Ea, Enki, having a woman, taking her, an illegitimate child. This is mentioned, that there was a birth. Then it's mentioned that baby's born, baby has white skin. White skin. Suddenly there's a big story. And many of the Igigi had white skin, but they didn't all have white skin. Some of them had black skin. Right. So now we're drawing a conclusion. So the black skin and the white skin, where does it come from? Igigi, the Grigori, Nephilim. White skin, black skin, Nephilim, strong genetics. Then the original humans, it speaks about Ululu having the red earth skin, like red earth, like American Indians, the brown red people from the Middle East, some tribes in Africa, some tribe in India, all around the world. Those were the indigenous, but the stock was mixed. So these days, you got a total mixing of stock. So the original people on earth were not black. That's a fallacy. They were not white. That's a fallacy. They were red, the color of earth. First, and it's very clear, the humans were manufactured. It's very specific. It has nothing to do with Zachariah Sitchin. This is the premier and preeminent. Go look them up. There are a whole list. In fact, I will share that to my channel right now for those of you that want to go and take a look. As we speak, I will share the research that I did, and you can go and take a look. I've given you a list, and a massive list of names. Bang, there it goes to my channel.
So with the whole humans being manufactured thing, is it created or tampered with? Because I haven't done a lot of research into that, but my gut feeling is we weren't created as such, but we were messed with, so that we like they put a telomere caps on the end of our telomeres, so we don't live as long. But actually being created, I'm a bit skeptical about that.
Well, if I create a painting, I'm going to take pre-existing things, earth materials to make colors, wood materials to make paper, and then I'm going to put the colors on the paper. So I created a painting, but all I've really done is I've rearranged and changed what was already there, right? So the word that is used in the Sumerian is translated as created. But like if you take the color blue and the color yellow and you mix them in a particular component, you're going to end up creating a new color, right? But it's still the color blue and the color yellow. So you haven't created anything new. You've just created a new version. I think so that word, those words are like easy to, like you could imagine how they would have used those words. Not that they created from scratch. Does that make sense? I don't believe they did. And it specifies that Enki in the beginning, when they said, let us make from them workers. So they were already there, but they made workers from them. So they created workers out of who was already there. So it's just sort of changed.
Some people might hear those stories from other sources and think that they created us from scratch and that they're our gods, so to speak. Whereas they changed us rather than created, and then for a purpose. And I think that some people might misinterpret the created as in, like, because that's what's been happening. I think that people have been worshipping these beings that created us as a workforce, or changed us to be a workforce, which they've been continued to do. I'd say maybe manipulate, maybe might be a better word, sort of manipulating, changing, perhaps a bit of rewiring, perhaps maybe keep us in that state so we continue to be workers. And when people have been giving their energy to gods via prayer, it's not been going to a source, it's been hijacked. And that energy of source, or the original creator, that all that is being hijacked, and that energy is perhaps been feeding these other beings, entities, which is now kind of this AI, this artificial egregore.
I think like this is exactly what we're facing now. It's the same story all over again. And once again, we're being proverbially recreated, in the same kind of nonsense. And it seems to be a pattern that we are all sort of, stuck with. And here's the point. This ancient race that is written about by the Sumerians is written about by the... Okay, so I'm going to do a special segment on this. But people don't know that. Did you know that Shiva, right, is associated with Enki, right? Enki had a bull, Nandi. It's his ride. He pimped up his ride. It's Nandi, right? Shiva's also got a crow. Sorry, did I say Enki? I meant Enlil. Sorry. So Enlil's one of his names, epithets, is the wild bull. Very associated with the bull. Enki also has bull associations, but as a secondary, right? Enlil's primary association is with the bull. Primary association is with the raven and the crow, right?
What about Marduk? Because I can see with Shiva, he has the trident, which is also that electrical...
Marduk took everything from his parents.
Right.
Marduk rewrote history. So what happened was the stories that we hear from the Sumerians don't match the stories that the Akkadians wrote, but the Akkadians wrote after Marduk, and Marduk proclaimed himself Ra, the only one God, and that none of the other gods are real or exist. And so he took all of the iconography of all of the other gods and put them onto himself, right? That was the true beginning of syncretism. And it was for political gain and power. And Marduk was the ruler of the giants. And this was after that great war that is referenced in Babylonian myth, and that great pestilence that came as a result of the war, and all of the starvation and the great cloud of poison. But when we go back even earlier than that, right, the rulership, right, started on earth, and they were being ruled by these beings that we find these elongated skulls and everything all around the world, right? Who are we talking about? This is a global empire. It's not just Sumeria, it's South America. It was the whole world that was being ruled by these ancient beings, and it's written about in ancient texts like Sumerian texts, like the Vedas, like the texts of the Persian texts, right? Arabic texts, the Norse stories. It's the same people, it's the same stories, right? So this is the confusion that we've got. Everybody is trying to think separatist, trying to think these are separate to that. that no, it's not. It's one story. Do you know the flood myth in Indian cosmology is Manu, right? And Manu was told by Enlil. Sorry, Manu was told by Shiva. No, sorry, not Shiva. I'm sorry, I'm mixing it up. Manu was told by yes, by Shiva, right? What am I mixing it up here? Sorry, no. Manu was told by an avatar of Vishnu. That's right. I think it's the seventh avatar of Vishnu, that in the form of a fish. Right? Now Vishnu is Enlil. So let me get this straight before I mix this up for you guys. So Vishnu is Enlil. Vishnu is associated with snake. I mean, with a giant fish, a giant oceanic fish, right?
So
there's also ram horns involved with Vishnu, right? Vishnu's one of his main avatar is called Ram, literally. Vishnu is also related to the archer, right? To the wielder of lightning, right? Vishnu, his avatars would wield lightning. And so when we're talking about this, we're talking about a storm god, which is Enlil, right? And so there's this very interesting story about how this message came through this fish deity and was basically providing Manu with the raw materials that he needed to build a boat. And then the great flood came, right? So you can see how some of the stories are twisted around. The good and the bad are twisted. You go to the Persian story, and the good guys were the yakshas, and the bad guys were the devas and the devis. You go to India, the good guys were the devas and the devis, the bad guys were the yakshas. So you can see there were political groups of rivalry, but the same groups we're talking about. But you were with Team Yaksha, you were with Team Devi. So the Devis were the good guys that were helping us. You were with Team. So there was a splitting off in the human race. I want you to understand this. There was political vying and powers and wars happening. And so you'll find that in one group, you're the good guy that helped us. In the other group, they switch the characters around, but it's the same characters. It's very interesting. And these are the ancient writings.
One way that that's helped me to navigate this, but it's not so simple, is just looking at the world and which energies rule us. It's not water. Water's been bottled and we've been cut off from source. What rules us now is electricity. So there's not to say that any gods that wield electricity are evil, but that energy is being used today by the powers that be. So in turn, what I tend to do is try and find the energy that's lacking, which is water, the flow, and try and find out which gods or deities use water, or the snake, or the wisdom, the imagination, and try and bring them up a little bit to create balance. And for a while I was like, yeah, anyone that wields electricity is evil, because that is, for me, evil in the world. But electricity doesn't really represent evil the way that they wield electricity does now. But electricity is just to do with thought and the synapses and that power. So it's not to say that this is evil, this is good. But if we just look at the elements and find out which elements are lacking and try and bring them up a little bit, because there has been an effort to suppress water, where I think there was more of a perhaps worldwide civilization using water, using mercury and maritime like sailing and stuff, and we used to be able to drink fresh water from wells and stuff not so long ago. So that's why I've always kind of tried to bring in the water deities a little bit more. Not to say that they're good. I don't I don't look at gods as persons or people, like not like this or that. I'm looking at the elements, what's behind them, what is the core. So like Enki being associated with fresh water or wisdom. Yeah, fresh water is wisdom. So that's all that is. It's not like Enki, this is Enki. I'm just looking at fresh water and wisdom. And then you have, you have knowledge with that too, because knowledge comes from that. But also at the same time, you need the electric spark too. So you can't just push away one and have the other. But when I'm talking of gods, it's just guardians of dimensions, of which there are many, and that we've had doors closed to these other dimensions, these other ways of being and thinking and perceiving and feeling. So when that's really helped me simplify stuff, because it can get a bit chaotic, it can get a bit crazy with all of these different deities, all of these different gods, and they all have similar stories. Like, it is the same story, but then there's like subtle changes and stuff. So that's really helped me just go with the essence or the element, and then be like, oh, okay, so names, schnames, whatever. What is the symbol? The symbol and the element. That's all I'm looking for to really see what it is. So, because I think we can get very confusing with all the different names and timelines and whatever. So yeah, for a long time I was like, yeah, Enlil's evil, Enki is the good one. Like, because Enki's like fresh water and like wisdom. Yeah, I can vibe with that. And like Enlil caused the flood and stuff. But really, I just go with the elements. I'll be like, yeah, Enlil's to do with electricity, and that can be very harmful, and that's been weaponized against us, as is our mind. And I think this is perhaps how some people reject their mind. People are like, oh, you need to get out of your mind and just feel with your heart and just float through life. But we need to be using our minds, because they're being weaponized against us. And I think this is the kind of there's always like two sides, the this and the that, and we can't be divided with them both. We need to like unionize them both and remember that we are not either. We are the central pillar in the middle, and we are the anchor. And not to be like too feeling or too thinking, but have a balance of both. You're muted, Franklin.
I was going to say totally, man. The idea is, and I was just finding the name of so that I can give you guys a sense of clarity here. The name was, okay, so Enki was associated with eagles. Don't know if you guys know that, but if you don't, I want you to guess.
No way, I did not know that.
Epithet for his name. However, the story of Enlil gets very interesting. Enlil was associated with a birdman, right? And this is the roots of shamanism. I want you guys to understand what I'm talking about here. So, and also the Anzu. Now, the Anzu is a lion-headed eagle, right? So this is going right back. Now, we think of these characters as being Sumerians. No, the Sumerians were keeping ancient history. The original tablets were written hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years ago, and they were written according to the tablets that we had, which are copies of copies of copies, probably translations of the original languages. They were written, the original ones were supposedly written on lapis lazuli tablets. Now, these people were extensively mining gold. The gold mines are here in Southern Africa, thousands of them. You can go take a look. Come here, see. You're not allowed to go where they are because De Beers gold mining faction owns most of the land, and they fenced it off where a lot of the gold mines are because they don't want people going in and taking gold because they want to control the money. So this idea of this eagle-headed, this lion-headed eagle is a big part of our heraldry and our heritage. Now, we want to start taking a look at this, right? The dragons. The dragons was the other part. So there was Enki. Enki was associated with dragons. Enki was associated with serpents, right? In the book, in Bible, Enki is associated with the deceiver, right? But now it depends on who you listen to. Then we go and look at who were the Aryan people. The Aryan people came from the north, right? Now, Noah, it says in the Bible that when he was born, he shone white like the sun. He had white skin. It was a big deal because the other people weren't white. It was a white baby. Now, Noah is not 5,000 years ago, 6,000 years ago, like they want us to believe. Noah is a story that comes from a story that comes from a story that comes from the Sumerian story that came from older stories that came from older stories and older stories that go back. We don't even know how long. 100K years, 50,000 years, who knows? I wouldn't be surprised if the flood is about 36,000 years ago, personally. But that's just who knows? There have been many floods. It's not just been one flood. The Great Flood covered the entire planet, and only the Himalayas were actually exposed. There's only one landmass. It's very clear that when the land was destroyed by flood, there was only one piece of land per. So we're talking about kilometers of water, right? Coming out of the earth. It's also described as coming out of the earth as well as coming to the earth from the firmament. So it came from both directions, right? It was like the earth was split open and the water came out. There's a lot of water inside the earth that came like a cracked egg, came pouring out of the earth. So anyway, we look at these ancient stories and what we see is that there was a single bloodline that was established, and that single bloodline spanned the whole world, the known world. So the African kings, part of the bloodline. Here in South Africa, we have lore about the connections of the African kings to these beings that are lizard beings, right? They're in the black people. We have records of it in the white. Who were the Normans? Right, take a look at who the Normans were. The Normans were of the descent of Scandinavian, the Norse. Another branch of the Scandinavian. Oh, and by the way, Normandy, the Normans, a big part of European French nobility, right? Elements of German nobility, a big part of the nobles of Europe, a lot of the nobles, Normans. Okay, there we go. Interesting. Who else? We've got the Saxons. My school was Anglo-Saxon. The Saxons, once again, roots in ancient Germany and strong connection to the Norse. Who were the Norse? The Norse was a huge tribe of the Aryan in the north. We've got tiny little stories to tell us. It's the same. The Aryan that they're talking about in India is the same people as the Norse, right? It's not this Norse people or those people. It's one group of people that were up in the north, and they came out of an ark, right? And they populated. And so we have the story of Ziusutra. Ziusutra is the Sumerian version of the story. It's probably one of the older versions we've got. Anyway, he was told by his father, Enki, indirectly, because he couldn't play a game, that basically you need to build this thing. Here's the specs. He gave him, he said there you'll find a stylus and a lapis lazuli plans. It's all on the plans. Build it. He built it, survived. Now, the story about Ziusutra, when he was born, just like the story of Noah, he was white-skinned. It mentions that he was radiantly white and that there was an issue with his mother and her husband because she had had an affair with Enki, or Enki had raped her. We're not sure how that happened. Well, basically, these beings, they could entice you. They could seduce you. They could psychologically overwhelm your consciousness, and you could do things that you didn't know that you were doing. So maybe she didn't even know that Enki had sex with her. Do you understand what I'm saying? Then there's stories about Enki raping someone as well. So you start to put all these stories together and you realize, that's interesting. Zeus. There were stories of Zeus also raping people. You see, like and all the children that came out of it, the illegitimate children of the gods. We've got to start asking questions. Who are we talking about? Then it speaks about how the giants in the Norse tradition were fighting a war against the gods. This is the same story as the Sumerian story. It's the same story. It's the same people. Hello, same heritage. And you'll find in Persia, the same story, right? It was the divas and the Azhura, right? Then in India, it's the Ashura and the divas, right? And you'll find the same story in the Americas, right? With the tribes, we're speaking about how they were at war with the giants, right? Same stories. Like wherever you go, King George and the dragon. Who's the dragon? Who is the dragon? What does this dragon represent, right? We're talking about bloodlines, right? The dragon bloodline. So there are these two separate bloodlines. There's the bloodline of the dragon bloodline, and there's the bloodline of the lion-headed eagle. You see these two bloodlines, Enki and Enlil. You go into Ireland, you'll see the same myths. The two brothers at war, great, terrible wars, decimated the earth, caused catastrophes. They had these great weapons, the spear and the sword, but they couldn't use these weapons because if they did, it would destroy the entire planet.
So out of the dragon and the griffin, which one would be Enki and which one would be Enlil? Would Enlil be the lion head and Enki be the dragon? And then we're told about the reptilians and dragons and snakes are demonized. But the lion seems to be the symbol of the empire at the moment, especially the state of Israel with Operation Rising Lion and stuff. So we're still being played, but like both maybe like evil, but why? Who's using the energy of the dragon? I just feel really like a deep connection that the dragon is not a malevolent energy, and it's not on any banners. Those flags, rather, all of those like Tartaria, Albion, and then now what's been ruling us is this more kind of electric energy. I mean, I'd much rather be ruled by the dragons. I'd much rather, but then again, is that where the Draco or draconian laws come from? Like, who's to know? You could just sort of be like, these guys are evil, these guys are good. But the thing is, I think if we reclaim these symbols, so let's not look at the griffin or the dragon as good or evil. Let's look at it as potential. Potential. Everything is potential. Forget about everything. It's just potential, the essence. So the dragon is a balance of, for me personally, the mind and the heart. The flight and the groundedness, and the griffin, the lion head, that would be representative of pride or courage or that solar energy. So any of these energies which are being used, weaponized against us, is not to like demonize the symbol or the animal, but to reclaim that for ourselves. Because pride is being weaponized, the pride flag, as well with this lion. And then just the name, I mean, a different name for it would be good, because it sounds a hell of a lot like lying, and the people that use it have been lying to us. So yeah, I think that's quite an important thing, and I think that comes with time, because when people, I'm using myself as an example, start looking into this stuff, you want to find the good. So you'll be like, this is the good side, that's the bad side. But just look at it all as reclaiming the symbols, reclaiming the language, reclaiming the archetypes, reclaiming our power. And if the stuff has been used against us, what are they trying to push? What are they trying to hide away? Because I think that the dragon would win in a fight against the griffin, to put it straight. I think the dragon would win, but the griffin seems to be winning or have won by, some means. But I think this dragon energy, if we bring out this dragon energy in us, that this lion-headed griffin will sort of back down a bit, and then there might be a bit more balance. But call whatever animal like speaks for you, really. But I'm summoning the dragons. I'm summoning these dragons back, but the good ones. not the evil draconians, but my own inner dragon, the dragon of the earth, the veins of the earth, the ley lines, the rivers, this water, so that it comes up to the surface, and we kind of can reclaim our power, not this or that, but our own internal power from our core can come up to the surface and once again breathe fire, which is much needed.
It's very, very interesting. And I wanted to show you an image. I wanted to pull up a whole slideshow, but I won't. I'm actually going to do a video on this. I'm going to specifically go. This is a lot of research that I've been doing. It's a slightly newer research, and it's been bloody hard work because you cannot rely upon the Google AI. It just wants to mess. So you've got to go and do your research to know to get the search terms right so that you can corner the bastard and he gives you the true information because he wants to lie. It's ridiculous. Or it wants to lie, whatever we're going to call it. But let me just pull up Shang so that we can get an idea here. Show. It should pop up in a moment. So I just want to bring something here. Since we're talking about the dragon and we're talking about this story, right? Now, if you look here, right, you can get a good, clear sense of what I'm talking about, right? So just let me take the chat comment. And namaste to everybody in the show. All the people come to watch, sending you all big loves and big blessings, peace, honor, respect. Hope you guys are having a good day. So you've got the story of this cosmic serpent, and the cosmic serpent is called Shankarshana. Now, Shankarshana is a combination of the roots of the word Shankar, which is old form of Shiva, after the form of Rudra, and Shana is a derivative of the word Shana, Shani. Shani is the planet Saturn, the black cube cult. I want us to be clear of the connections here between these words etymologically. Now, the Shankarshana is the cosmic serpent. And if you go and take a look now, you see like Shankarshana, as I learned about it in India, it is the serpent that you have the Yuga wheel, and as the Yuga wheel turns, the universe is created and destroyed. And as the universe is created and uncreated and recreated and uncreated and recreated through these phases of Yugic cycles, there comes a point where Vishnu sleeps. He sleeps upon the cosmic ocean, the cosmic waters, the pure cosmic waters of pure consciousness. And when Vishnu sleeps, he is supported by this serpent that holds all the many heads and the hoods, and each head and hood of the serpent holds the planets in its place, and the astrological bodies, the sun, everything in place. In ancient times, this was related to a 1,000-headed being with Rudra. Now, this is today related to Vishnu, so it's a big part of Vaishnavism. However, you go back in time and you can see here, when you go back to the Yajurveda, right, which is like 1000 BC and before, you'll find that Rudra is very connected to this cosmic serpent, and this has got different names. Sheshta, got a few different names, but Shankarshana is the well-known, more modern name, and it still carries the root of the name Shiva in it. So there's been this reappropriation of symbolism between the deities, and it's got to do with who was ruling. When the one became popular and the one priesthood cult took over the other priesthood cult, they would steal their stuff. Then the other priesthood cult would come back and take over and steal their stuff. And this has been going on. And it makes me think of the political divide of, the left and the right. They're playing us. And I wonder whether that ancient race was playing us too, playing good cop, bad cop. The so-called story of Enki and Enlil, were they really the same people? Were they really the same people, one group that was playing us? And they were playing good cop, bad cop with us so that we would hate the one and follow the other. And then they would when that one wound us up, then they would switch it up. Sorry. Come here, my little boy. Come. Let Daddy get you. There we go. I don't want you to fall off. So when the one would sort of, wear out their welcome, ruling over humanity, the other one would take over. And I think this has been a sort of changing of the guard scene that we've been observing. So just to point out, Jan, you can track it here. There's timelines for it. The 11 Rudras sprang forth from Rudra. Now, Rudra is the original form of Shiva, very ancient, like thousands of years old, 3,000 plus, 5,000 years ago they were worshipping. Rudra used to be what is considered in modern terms a more minor deity, but I don't believe it was a more minor deity. I think there's just been, like I'm saying, the changing of the guard. The major deity becomes a minor, the minor deity becomes a major, and then they switch it off and they play us like this, and people don't forget the old deity, so it just becomes minor. And then when that priesthood class takes over, changing of the guards, and there's probably been wars over who's ruling humanity. So when we talk about the group of the Griffin, and the Griffin, as we can track it here, is very strongly related to Enlil, and the eagle cult is strongly related to Enki, right? And we can see that the great bull of heaven is another one that was really greatly related to Enlil as well, and the serpent cult, right, very strongly related to Enki. But here we're seeing that the serpent cult switched. So at some point, Vishnu became the holder of the cosmic serpent, but the cosmic serpent was actually the embodiment of Rudra. Rudra taking the form of the 11 Rudras, representing the 10 breaths, the 10 essences, and the mind that rules over the 10 essences. And so, when we start to see here, I think that they've been switching this up for us for a long time. I think they've been playing a very careful game, being very careful to make sure that they let me get us back on a normal zone. How do I do that? What's going on here? And why is this screen like this? Is so bloody annoying. Oh. So let me remove this from the screen, and that should. Now, how do it won't let me, and it won't let me do it. I'm in a live. Thank you. So I can't actually do anything here. Isn't that incredible? So the StreamYard is just causing loads of issues. So I can only keep it in this format. It won't let me change it.
That's fine.
Just to get that other
when
screen.
You were talking there, you were talking about a snake, and you mentioned a name called Sheshta. Yeah. That's interesting because obviously the snake is associated with the more intuition, or the internal, which is more of the water, which would be the feminine. So it's interesting. It sounds like sister, because that's when I was talking about the myth of Narcissus and the gnosis terms, and you've got to know systems, but then you've got to acknowledge that part of us which is cut off, which is our subconscious, the internal, which is the more kind of intuition, feminine. So it's so interesting that the snake's associated with Sheshta, which sounds like sister. And also as well, did you mention that Enki is associated with an eagle? Right. Interesting, because I've not heard that Enlil's associated with a birdman. Your mic's muted, by the way.
I'm calling it a birdman, but it's been referred to as birdman, but it's like a hybridized creature, and that hybridized creature is obviously the head of a lion, and head of a lion and body of an eagle. In fact, Let me tell you about this. There's a connection here with Shiva. I believe Shiva takes the avatar of a lion-headed bird creature, right? In Vedic cosmology.
Do you know what comes to mind right now is
What?
the demiurge. So if we look at, the demiurge is not. So the demiurge was birthed from Sophia, but I think the demiurge is a twin. I've always felt that it's not just a singular being, because you have Zervan cosmic time giving birth to Ahura Mazda and Ahriman, the this and the that, the two brothers, two twins. It's a story that echoes throughout time. It's always two. So I found it weird. It's just one, the demiurge. I think that there's two potentials there. One is the lion head that we're talking about, Enlil, and then the other is the body of the snake, which is Enki. And I think perhaps the demiurge isn't just one being. It can switch between the this or the that, and that's how it continues to rule over us. Like, if you kind of break down all barriers and just look at what is the demiurge, what were the Gnostics talking about with the planet or the system being a prison or a false reality. Well, I can tell you what false reality is, and a false reality is something something that isn't real for us, for humans. Like the false reality would be for us to go one direction, then go the other direction, but it's the same being, it's the same force. And I think that beyond this whole story of Enlil, Enki, whoever else, all these other gods, I think that the demiurge is this illusion of the empire. Well, not an illusion, but it's how the empire rules, through the illusion of the this way or that way, when really it's the same energy which has been pushing humanity to where it is, where we are now. And I've also, so would Enlil be associated with the Thunderbird as well? I think, because obviously you have a bird and thunder. Yeah. It's interesting that he's associated with the Griffin, because there's a movie called Griffin, and I urge people to go. Oh, sorry, it's not a movie; it's a TV series called The Griffin. I believe it's German, from the people who created the TV series Dark, which I haven't seen, but I've heard great things. So what's interesting about this TV series is that there's this griffin which sinks its claw into the back of the sort of like the person of authority, and it can live vicariously through them. And that this guy goes to this other place, this other realm, and there are these stone men, like this kind of slave race, and this guy's wearing a necklace, and it's Lucifer's sigil, and they rip it off him, and they say that's a bad god. And I just find that so interesting, because Lucifer would be more associated with Enki. And from my research thus far, Enlil, or the way that the powers that be of you can use in that energy, is the more Molochian energy, which is this bull head. So I just find that interesting, that in that TV series they kind of show those energies there. Have you seen the comments from the Star?
I'm having a real hard time here.
What's going on?
I don't want to use bad words. I don't want to swear, but I'm feeling like it's time to start swearing. My whole screen is just messed up, man. It's StreamYard. It's doing weird crap. I don't know what it's doing. There we go. That's better. It made everything all weird, and it made everything all small. And when I tried to fix it, the picture on went down to like a dot, and I couldn't see us on the camera. I couldn't see which screen was going on, and StreamYard's just messing it up. Like, you try and change one little thing, and it changes everything, and then it glitches out, and then I've got it right again now. So what was the Star saying? Creating a Saturn moon matrix. Yes, exactly. The Saturn moon matrix is a big part of this. when we look at this and get a sense of what's going on, because it seems that like the principle of expansion, and I was talking about this a while ago, the principle of expansion is Zeus, Jupiter. That's the Dios Pitta in Sanskrit. This is the expansive principle. This is the sky father. This is Odin, expansive. They always wield lightning, right? Lightning expands electrically. And then the principle of contraction is always been Saturn, the green man, the contracts, the reaping, the reaper, the going into the underworld, right? So the one represents birth and the other one represents death, in a sense. Time represents getting old. Jupiter represents coming forth, expanding into life, joviality, good life, positivity, benediction, all of these things. So the Saturn moon matrix is exactly what we're talking about, right? And we look at it, we're looking at Jupiter, we're looking at how they've played with us, we're looking at this, for example, the idea of a goatfish, right? Goatfish idea on one hand. And on the other hand, we're looking at the idea of a lion-headed eagle, right? So we're looking at a lion-headed eagle, we're looking at a goatfish. We're also looking at a serpent.
They sound like two dragons. The goat with the horns, and it sounds like a water dragon. And then the lion-headed eagle sounds more like a dragon with wings. So I think we're just looking at two different dragons there, kind of.
The worm and the dragon, yeah. Ormandor, what is it called? The Norse version of it. And this worm is this great weapon.
We've just had a worm moon as well, I think, which is quite relevant.
Yeah, exactly. Your moon.
Well, this moon, it's a blood moon, but it's a worm moon as well, I've heard.
The moon would have been in the full moon, and it's now, and the eclipse is happening. Huh?
Yeah, and it's a worm moon, but it's also a blood moon, and eclipse too.
Yeah, worm moon, and because the moon is in Leo, and Leo is the serpent. You see, like literally the astrological symbol for Leo is it's a serpent.
And that symbol is on the back of a cobra's hood also, the symbol for Leo.
Yes, well, there we go. Like it's very related to the serpentine story. So the moon would be in Leo. So, that's quite interesting. And that does make for a very intense, powerful energy. What's happening now today, right? What is the trumpeter? The trumpeteers announced, we shall be releasing the extraterrestrial files. Everybody, hold on to your brooks. It's all coming out. And they've got us on this drip feed, right? Like one drop, like fan phase, big fan phase, and then like one drop. It's like, that's it. That's all we have. And then like 5 years later, hold on, we found more files. We're going to release the whole lot, another drop, drip, drip, drip. It's all part of what we've been discussing extensively, this blue beam story, right? So have you been following that? I think today is the day it's being signed off on, by the way, the eclipse.
What's that?
The release of these extraterrestrial files.
Okay. Yeah, so a 3-3, March the 3rd, digamma. Yeah. That just means to change or to split consciousness. I think gamma is to do with Christ consciousness, and the die is to split or change. So whenever you see 33, it's just they're changing our consciousness. So something was going to go down today. Last week, I thought it would be an attack on Iran, but they did that a few days early, which was a surprise. I thought they'd wait till today because today has something to do with is it the Israel and Persian conflict, or something to do with Persia
today. Israel and Iran.
Is the third is
Iran says we're going to rip them a new one. and it gets funny. China get probably sold. I bet they didn't just give it to them and be like, you know what, we're going to do you a favor. But anyway, China gave all the intelligence information of all the American bases and all the American bombs and missiles and aircraft carriers, everything that's pointing at Iran. China said, here, take that. So Iran has got I think it's a subtle way for China to say to the rest of the world, this is where we stand. This is our allegiance. They are part of our financial structure. We've got a financial arrangement with Russia and India, and, Iran's becoming part of our fold. So Iran, if they aren't already part of it, they will be a part of it, which is going to put more pressure on it. We're talking about the new currency co-op, can we call it that, between the countries, and it's threatening the Western Bloc's money. And so we see that this is fast moving, changing, and this is where it's at. So Iran has been saying we've had enough. And to be honest with you, the Zionists have gotten away with a lot, right? And I really feel sad for the Israeli people getting caught up in the middle of a Zionist conflict, because a lot of Israeli people have nothing to do with this. The Zionists are not just based in Israel. They're a global organization. They're all around the world. They control a lot of everything, and they are really at the head of this table. And,
there was, I haven't tried looking for it yet, but I was having a conversation with my mum yesterday, and apparently 90% of Israelis were pro the attacks on Palestine, which I'd said I do not think that's true. The guy who she was reciting, oh god, I wish I could remember his name. I'll text her and I'll find out, because I told her that he was an idiot, and she's what did he say? He's basically an expert with Israel and or an expert with Palestine at first. Right, that's right, okay. That he's Israeli, he's Jewish, and he's an Israeli. And I just said to her,
so he's not at all biased. He's obviously a Zionist.
Yeah, well, that's what I said to her. I didn't say Zionist, but I said that these people throw people under the bus. And I said to her, this guy sounds like a bit of an idiot, because he claims to be an expert, but he instead of him saying this or that, I can't remember what she recited, he mentions nothing about bloodline families, mentioned nothing about the Medicis and whoever, So if he claims to be an expert on this conflict, you've got to look beyond that. And what I said to her, so I said that just before the October 7th happened, Netanyahu was going to be voted out of office, or he was going to be leaving office. The Israelis didn't want Netanyahu there. So if these same people that wanted all of this horrific stuff that's happened, that Netanyahu has signed off on and done, it makes no sense to me that the same people that would want him out are the same people that would be, condoning all of this. So I think that is yet again another way to manipulate statistics and push the blame onto the people. And I think what is happening is that there's a script, and that for some reason Israel needs to be hated. For some reason, I think it's in the Bible or something, that Israel needs to be hated and then needs to be destroyed so it can be rebuilt or something. That there seems to be so much hate towards this one place, but the thing is, the people pulling the strings don't live there. The people pulling the strings don't live there. That area, I think, people need to want it to be wiped out or something. I think it's in the Bible. That's how all of this, this probably, the New World Order comes in. Whereas people need to stop focusing on a country or the puppet who's in control, and actually look at the bigger picture and see who's pulling the strings and why. It's the same with people saying, oh, it's the government, it's just the government's fault. Who are the government? Who's in the government? Who's funding the people in positions in the government? You know, you can't just have these throwaway comments like, oh, it's Israel, oh, it's this. You know, we have to really start looking at the bigger picture and who is actually pulling the strings, because this is what makes us like continue to go around in circles, really.
I can actually prove that guy is just a BS. He's just a total bullshitter. And here it is, right? This is like evidence. This was witnessed all around the world, right? And this was last year in August, right? So there were 1 million people taking part in a protest, right? 1 million people. I want to repeat that. 1 million people taking part in a protest officially. 500,000 of them were in the streets of Tel Aviv. One city, 500,000, all around the country, 1 million people, right? The entire population of Israel is about 10 million. 1 out of 10 people actually walked onto the streets. Do you understand what a big deal that is? Now, in the UK, right? In the UK, when you have 1 million people protesting, it's a big deal. Remember how many people were protesting against the war?
Yeah, I was there as a child, and it made no difference. But there was at least 1 million of us. Yeah.
Now, the point I want to make is, it doesn't mean that there were only 1 million people that were against it. It means that there was 1 million people that were prepared to get up, walk out into the street, put themselves in harm's way because the military and the police are going to be beating you up and maybe shooting water cannons in you. You could get like a black mark next to your name. To actually go to a big protest like this, if there are 1 million people at a protest, you can count on the fact that there's at least 3, 4, or 5 million people that are against it. I would say a more accurate population statistic is half of Israel is totally against it. At least, I would say more. The fact that there were 1 million people on the streets speaks volumes. And you can't say that every certain, a lot of the people that are against it are infirm. A lot of the people that are against it are busy working, right? A lot of the people that are against it are afraid. A lot of people that are against it are the elderly. When just you take in those numbers, right, you're going to have at least 2 to 3 times the number. So to say that there's an absolute minimum of 4 million people that are against it would be fair. I would say it's probably more like 6 or 7. They've probably been going around recruiting Zionists from all around the world and bring them into Israel over the last few decades to try and up the numbers of Zionists in the country. But there are anything from 5 million plus people that are against this. And that's a significant, that's enough to replace Netanyahu. And these people in Palestine, like this massive protest that was running here, right, that was specifically demanding a Gaza ceasefire and to free all the hostages. So now this guy is saying that there are only 1 million people against the war. That's total bullshit. That means that every single person against the war left their house to go and stand on the street. That's not realistic, right? That's not realistic. What about all the elderly? What about people in wheelchairs? What about the people that were like working and they couldn't get off work? And what about the people that were scared? Come on, man, there's at least 2 million, 3 million, 4 million. It means that he's a bloody liar and that the numbers are cooked. And anybody that believes that is just plain old simple gullible, because there is actually evidence to be tracked, and that evidence basically refutes what he's saying very, very obviously. And I, as an activist in the UK, I can tell you, when we get 1 million people on the streets, it's because there are like 20 million people that feel that way. Right? Like you're lucky if you get 1 out of 10 people on the streets. So the fact that there's 1 million people on the streets, I wouldn't be surprised if there are 9 million people, if there's 90%. I think it's more like 90% of Israel are against it and 10% of Israel are for it. I think that is a more accurate number based on the fact that there were 1 million people that got off their asses and walked in the streets to protest. It's a big deal to go to a protest. Like, would your mom go to a protest? No. Would your uncles and your aunties go to protest? Not everybody goes to protests. It takes a certain special kind of person to go to a protest. But did your mom agree with the war? No. Right? Like a lot of people that disagree with war don't go to protests. So the fact that 1 million people went, I think it gives us a real idea of the actual cross-section. And I think to say that there were 7 or 8 million people against it is not an unrealistic guess, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's more. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 80% of the population that's totally against it. And they don't benefit. Here's the thing. The people on the street, they do not benefit from this. Their lives are in turmoil. They are in danger, right? They are getting scorned from the international community. When they travel out of their countries, people are like, you bloody Israelis, look what you're doing to the Gaza. Wah, 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 wah. They aren't being loved by this. Israeli people love to travel. It screws up their lives. Economically, they're not benefiting. Their taxpayer money is now being spent on creating a war, right? It's expensive. And the benefits and the profits go to big military industrial corporations and get invested into AI, systems that can basically police and run these military projects like Lavender that they've been using to strike Iran with.
Yeah, man, definitely agree there. It's the thing is people cheer on both sides. They're like, oh, if only these people weren't there, then there wouldn't be an issue. It's not. I'm gonna start repeating the same stuff, but it's not the country themselves, it's the people behind them. But what I do have an issue with is flags. Now, I have an issue with the flag of Israel. I have the issue with any flags, but especially the St. George flag, especially the Union Jack, and especially the flag of Israel, even though it's got the hexagram in the center. And that's why, because they're using this magic against us, and it's blue as well. That's the throat chakra. They're kind of making us, like, by causing all of this division and hatred, disconnect us from ourselves, from the earth, so that they can usher in this artificial reality for us, basically. Because before that happens, they need to desensitize us. And the flag's blue. It's part of blue beam there, part of projecting fear, and the hexagram is a very powerful symbol, because it represents magic. As above, so below. You have the blue line at the top, blue line at the bottom, probably representing the waters above and waters below. Well, most are ignorant of that. Most are ignorant of the waters that are inside the earth, of which there's like 3 times as much as above the earth. And people are ignorant of the waters above too. They're just stuck in the middle. And I think that's where they want to try and keep us in the middle, while the what's it called? As the pendulum swings this way and that way. At first it's the lefties, it's the left wing, it's the blue side, and then when the right come in and start bringing in what they've been planning to do, then people will be like, oh, it's the right, oh, it's the left, you're right wing, you're left wing, and the pendulum continues to swing, tick tock, when people are just kind of stuck in the past and worried about the future, whereas they're stuck in that time loop, and rather than just focusing on the present now, the central pillar of what's like, where are we, what are we doing as people? And do you know what pisses me off is people who see what's going on, but just are because there's one thing to not get caught up in the right left divide, but it's another thing to ignore it completely. It's another thing to ignore it completely. Like, these things going on need to be spoken about, they need to be talked about, but not from a place of fear and not from a place of loving one side over another, but calling out actions and actions of, to be honest with you, it's corporations, it's this corpse operation, which is this kind of dead entities trying to suck the life out of humans so it can just feel what it is to have a bit of emotion. And it's this emotionless energy, and it's like people are just like, for those of us that see these people in power, Trump, Netanyahu, Biden, or Jim Carrey, whatever, whoever it was, they're just puppets. Like, we can be puppets too. And that you see in music videos and stuff, with Taylor Swift, Ariana Grande, Billie Eilish, they tell us in their music videos that they're just puppets, that they're dead, that they've died, that they've been so psychologically manipulated and distorted that they become a vessel for these dead entities. And really, that's where this energy wants us all. This deceiver, this deception, this Ahrimanic force, which will be this basically collective we, after everywhere's decimated, after we beg for AI to come and save us from this invasion, from this war, whatever. We know AI is going to be the savior, and a lot of people will suck it up. And it's only a prison if we make it so. And we can see the drip, 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 drip of digital ID, all of this artificial infrastructure. And it's being created by us because we're walking along with it and using it. And really, at the end of the day, this is an anti-human and it's an unhuman energy out there. And the only way to combat it is to become our full potential, be balanced, use the mind and the heart. You need to use the mind, but also you need to feel. You need to go inwards too. So you need to go deep into the earth, deep into yourself, have strong roots, and at the same time branch out as far as you can to have a 360-degree vision of what's going on, because they try to keep us divided in these little sections of segments of looking this way, looking that way, people thinking that they know what's going on, them knowing what reality is, and by being like caught up on one side, but being like, oh, if only our guy was in power, then everything will change. Here in the UK, people think that when if Farage gets in, Reform, Reclaim Party, it's a repeat. They're repeating patterns, and just because they've changed the color, people are falling for that trap, and it is a trap. So I'll just leave my rant there. That just people need to stop falling for the bullshit and just be centered, be grounded. But with grounded, you need to have deep roots, and at the same time, branch out far, and just take it as it comes, and then look at everything. Don't focus on something and be like, yep, that is the truth. This is my truth. Because I'll tell you what, over time, that will change. So, and all that will do is, if you're stuck to stuff, you'll be stagnant, stuck. And also, it'll be harder for you to shift and move. You need to be constantly moving and weaving between, because there's attacks coming at us all the time to try and keep us stuck and like in a net. Like, we have the internet and the web, World Wide Web, that we all seem to be stuck on, and this vibration ripples through all of us. But if you're able to, I guess what I mean is, the more you wriggle, the further you'll be stuck. If you are centered and grounded, then you'll just go through that. It will kind of, uncling. Like the more we struggle and fight, the deeper the claws go, so to speak.
Aye. My son and his mother are having sibling rivalry dramas, and I don't know what's going on with the two of them. She's not very good at establishing discipline. She shouts too much. If you keep shouting at kids, just switch off. You must try not to shout. Always make your voice as low as possible and just say, "Oi, buddy, this is going too far. You need to take action." And then speak with a soft voice. They get more like, "Oh no, I'm in trouble." Like she shouts and shouts and shouts. He thinks it's a joke because she's always shouting. So it's like, oh yeah. You see, when you shout, you're letting off your energy. And I think like here's an important distinction, and it's a point that's relating to what you're talking about. People go on the internet and they shout in their text, mentally shouting with their text. And they think, oh, I've done my, no. Shouting doesn't achieve anything. You got to have a slow, calm, measured voice, and you speak with actions, right? Where do you spend your money? Who do you support? You vote with every dollar. You can detrimentally position those economic powers to some degree by what you use your money on, right? We should all be trying to go back to cash. We should be forcing our banks to start giving us cash. We should be trying to stay away from cryptocurrency, try to go back to cash. You know why? Because it forces our banks to give us solid items in our hands that they can never, ever control, right? Because I've got cash, I can give you cash. It's between you and me. It's not between anybody else. Oh yeah, but the crypto exchanges are completely encrypted. Oh, come on, man. You think the CIA and the MI6 and Mossad can't crack that encryption? You're living in a daisy dream world, buddy. They have quantum computing. They have whole sorts of technology that the people who create the cryptocurrency do not have access to. So they literally have the power of 10,000 computers working on one task at once. Imagine, right? Oh, but it would take a computer 5 years to crack the cryptocurrency. What do you think a quantum computer is going to do? 5 minutes? No. Come snap out of that delusion. We need to wake up, right? They want us in the digital world. There's a reason they want us in the digital world. It's because in the digital world, we go around shouting on Facebook, on this and that, sharing memes. And then we share these loud, expressive, shouting memes, and now we feel like we've done our bit. No. You're better off not to share the memes and to actually change the way you live. You're better to change the way you think. You're better to change the patterns of your spending, right? Try and step away. I mean, I spend a lot of money without cash, which is a challenge because I do a lot of online shopping, right? But I make sure that I've always got cash on me, and whenever I can, I try and use cash, right? So it's just important for us to keep cash on us and to keep using cash, because that way they won't do away with cash and it will still be an option. I think that's something that people, it slipped under the radar. And I mean, that's a small thing. But I do also feel that what we support financially is a massive thing, and we're not winning the game, right? For example, who uses Spotify? If you use Spotify, you're a bastard. It's that simple, because Spotify is replacing the artist's music with AI copy music and cutting the artists out of the money so that they can take all the money, profiting. So you are spending money to go into a huge Spotify corporate investment account that is going to be used by our overlords to control us. So what you want to do is stop using Spotify. Go to the artists themselves and buy the MP3 downloads. or the, buy the downloads directly from and keep them on your own system. Don't even rely on the internet for your music. Build your own. I've been building a database of things. Don't go and use a database where you can read books and put them on. No. Get the books. Get the files. Download them. Keep them on your system. If that's how if you want to read books like digitally, try and get hardcover books if you want to. And I think it's really we're at this point now where we're going to watch everything being financialized and everything being sort of extremely controlled, and it's reaching a crescendo. And these ruling powers. I was getting into the story of the Saxons, the Norse, the Normans, right? Who are the other people? There's bloodlines that connect to ancient Egypt, right? As well. There's bloodlines that connect to the Hebrew people, right? So wherever there have been kings and queens in ancient times, there has been a ruling caste. This is what we've got to recognize. India, the Iranians, right? And now our kings and queens have been replaced by cabinets, right? And what is a cabinet? A cabinet is something where you store things, right? They store their puppets in a cabinet. Then they open the cabinet to us and they flash the puppets at us and put the puppets back in the cabinet, and that's how they control us. So we've got to realize that our kings and queens have been replaced by puppeteers and puppets. And the financial system, like we know the banks are evil. It's very hard to live without banks in this day and age, unfortunately. If you want to do anything, you need a bank account, as you know, right? Without a bank account, like you'll be lucky to be able to fart, So they pretty much got us hemmed in and controlled. If there's anything that you want to do that's important, like one of the first things they want to know is that you've got a bank account, right? You want to start a business, bank account. You want to do this, bank account. It's these days it's got a lot to do with security, right? And even companies that want you to give you so-called free products, they want to get your bank account details on file, right? Just so that they can track who you are. Here in South Africa now, your bank is connected to, so through my bank, I can order an ID. Yeah. The bank does the biometric data. The bank handles the biometric security. This is going to be a global thing soon. You'll be able to go onto your phone. I'll be able to pick up my phone app and go click, 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 ID, bang, ordered. It'll come to my door. I don't know if you can do passports. I think you can do passports too. So, passports are a little bit more tricky because you have to deal with an international. You can do the processing and the ordering. You'll have to go in like face to face because they actually want to know who they're dealing with, because before they give you a visa for their country or I think from your own government, you can get your passport. Yeah, visas you can't do, but passports you can get. So this is like all being run through the banks. But slowly but surely, the banks are going to get more and more control, more power, until it gets to the point where your local governance system will be just running through your bank, and that'll be everything. And then the bank will dissolve, and it will just be a financial system of control run by your overlords, like in China. So, what can we do? I suppose that's a pretty good place to go. Like, what can we do personally? Okay, so we can watch our spending, we can watch who we support. We can never, ever, ever vote. Never, ever, 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 ever vote. Why? Because when there are enough people that haven't voted and everybody goes on the streets, we've got an issue of democracy. And then the lawful right to remove people from power can be sought, right? Not permission, not asking, not saying, please, would you vote for someone else? No, we remove your system. Once 80% of people don't vote, they can all take to the streets and say, we cancel your system. We are now going to have a street vote right here, all of us, all around. We've got the internet, we're all connected. We're going to discuss what we want. and none of you are going to tell us what to do. Then those are the kind of anarchy that could happen when enough people don't vote. But we need to get critical mass. And that anarchy, I think, is a big part of our future. I think it's inevitable because like the controllers are not just going to say, oh, you know what? So much hard work controlling you people. Here you go. Here are the keys to your freedom. Like, yeah, of course they're going to do that. Yeah. And while you're at it, let's give you back all your money.
Yeah, man. I've just been searching like the links between Manu and mana and money and the ether and the ka and the cash. And I've just been looking up like what threads all of these together, because obviously the Manu, from what I've searched, is a king at the time when there was a flood that you were talking about earlier. And there's a link here between water and gold, obviously, and energy, and where's our energy going? Where has it been going? Because really that's the essence of what we're talking about, is our energy, our life force. Where is it going? Who's it being taken by? And what's being built? Like, really. So I'm going to do further research into this, but just so far, I'd like to get your input of this as well. But obviously, mana is monatomic gold, or the supernatural life force that goes through all things. So that kind of reminded me of the ether as well. That kind of like life force which goes through all things. And then the ka as well, which is also the life force, or I guess the aura, which is related to gold as well, or light. So I'm going to have to do further research into this. So I can't really do this right now on the spot. But the Manu was a king, am I correct? When there was the flood. But
he was the one who built the ship.
Okay, right. So
and he got into the ship and he survived. Mm-hmm. And he survived because Vishnu came to him in an avatar form of a fish. Enki.
Okay.
And the fish avatar whispered in his ear that there's going to be a flood and told him he needed to build a big boat. So he did. It's the same bloody story. But you're right. He was the survivor and the rebuilder and the great king post. I don't know whether he was a king to begin with, but I know that post-flood he was definitely a great king.
Okay.
So AI will probably focus on that story because we're not supposed to know that the flood was real.
Yeah, well, again, I think the flood, probably most likely was a material thing that happened in this realm. But also at the same time, what was the flood spiritually? Like, what's beyond there just being a flood? A wave? Was the wave water, or was it light? And the reason why I mention that is because an arc is a story arc. You have the arc of a story, a container, a vessel. Well, what's that? It's a book. A book or a story is a store of energy where we store that, and that is the greatest store of wealth there is to be well read, and not just read by reading books, just being able to read the signs of the times. And I think that what happened was that there was probably a flood with water, but something shifted with the light as well. Something changed with the light, because both you have light waves and water waves, and I don't think it was just a flood of water. It was perhaps a resetting of our DNA as well, perhaps that's around that same with our DNA, with our light. It's something I've always felt, that the story of the Ark, because you have the Ark of the Covenant too, which was built from the same wood as Noah's Ark, cypress. Or no, was it cypress, or what was the other one? Begins with C. Cedarwood. Cedarwood. There's like 3 things that were built with cedarwood: the Ark of the Covenant, Noah's Ark, and then something else too. So I just see all of these as the same thing. The Ark of the Covenant, Noah's Ark, it's all just a containment of energy. I won't go into that now, but I do think that this relates to the Saturn moon matrix, or the moon, and what that is and what it looks like, and the Earth, and why people think it's kind of like a simulation. It's all based on light. I think there's something really deep beyond that. Perhaps there was a reset, and that this is all a copy, and this is why we need to learn lessons, so we don't repeat the same mistakes from the past and wipe out the Earth. But that's something I'm just looking into. Is the moon, what is that? Is that like where we actually are? Is it like an X-ray of the Earth? There's something there, which, because you have Anzu who took the stole the tablets of destiny from the moon god's Sin, and then you have Christ dying for our sins. Like, all of the names leave a trail. Like, you might not think that the moon god Sin, the moon, and our sins, our light, are linked, but when you look into the Ark, a carrier, a vessel, the Ark of the Covenant, like this like energy, I feel like I'm onto something, and it is going through the weeds. There's a lot of weeds, but I think that there's some kind of universal cosmological story here that goes beyond these drip of what we're actually told. And then there's definitely a link between Manu, the flood, mana, money, the ether, and Ka and Kash as well, and the Akashic records. The Akashic records, somebody said to me before, because I haven't looked into what they are, all I know is that it's something to do with light, and it's something to do with the records of everything that has ever happened, ever been. Somebody came up with that name, whatever. I don't care who that is or who that was, whatever. It's just the name, the Akashic records, light. Light is information, and from light within, or light outwards, we can tap into, we can record our connection to source, the record, to record, to be in tune with the, universal source, or whatever, the music that is flowing through all things, music for the spheres. So I mentioned that is that, the ether and the Ka and the Kash and Manu, mana, money. How we perceive money seems to be like money's external, but really, actually, money or mana is this universal, this energy which flows through all things, flows through us. And I think that we let this, let's say magic instead. Magic flows through all things, flows through us. It's a wave, it's a light wave, it's a water wave. But if you don't acknowledge it, that's going to go straight through you. That's why there's not much magic. People disconnected from it. And this is why it comes in through us with vessels, and it goes. And then the powers that be are using this money or mana or manu or aether or whatever, this universal force, which is the universe, this universal energy. And we just have money. We have these coins which we get, and we use our energy, give them to other people. There's a bit of magic in that, especially if it's gold that you're trading or silver. But when it's digital and you're just buying, consuming, working to fill this void or space, that is our magic. this big chasm that we have, and lots of us have inside of us, that is the space where our magic is, and it goes deep. This is why people fill it with so much, because they're trying to fill this empty space. And this is why the space all around us, the aether, the aura, whatever, this cosmic, this energy, the 99%, we've been made to ignore that, focus on the 1%, focus on the material, focus on the phone that we've been chained with, the phony that we have our money in, and we just use this and we live vicariously through this rather than being tapped into the 99%. And it is funny that it's the 1% which have us focused on the 1%, the material, the structure, the matter, you know, not the real matter, not the mother, not the waters, just the physical dense energy. And this is what I believe the 5D 3D is people say we're going from 3D to 5D, there's a new earth and stuff. So that all of that is already here. We just need to be channels for it. And this is why Saturn, and this is why the hex, and this is why it's been used for nefarious purposes, is so important to acknowledge. Because if you don't wave, this magic won't acknowledge you, and it will flow straight through you. And this is how we become empty vessels. And that void will be filled with other stuff.
You know, you mentioned mana. Well, excuse me, eating. It's, what's the time here? It's midday. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's my break fast. So I haven't eaten anything today, and the food was warm. I don't want to waste it. It's really nice, you know. Nice mashed potato and vegetables with some beans and lentils and gem squash, and simple but yummy. So yeah, quite sattvic as well. My son's mom actually cooked, so been cooking lately. That's interesting. I'm not going to complain. I usually do a lot of the cooking, most of the cooking. So you know, I think speaking about the mana, you know, and the mani. Mani means like gem, you know. It means a gem that's all encompassing, you could say. It's a gem that's physicalizing. That's why the triangle in Manipura chakra is pointing downwards. Fire is being drawn into the body to manifest. As opposed to in the West, we consider the upward pointing, fire pointing upwards. They see this as a very interesting perspective.
Did you say it was a gem?
Yeah. And the word mani means gem, specifically. Right. Specifically. But the metal associated with Manipura chakra, this is interesting, happens to be gold. So we've got a word that means gem for a chakra that's associated with gold, and it happens to be the word that we use for what we trade with, and we happen to be, everything was until recently based upon gems and gold, right?
And value. Money poorer as well. It's interesting. So you have the current there, because of course gold and water are both currents. So it's like pouring, it's flow, and it's the money as well. That's so.
Yeah, they're really clever in the way they do this. So yeah, you know, there's definitely correlations there with that, and like you were saying, you know, these rulers over us are, what we don't realize is how tentative their grasp is and how desperate they are to stay in power. And they're like a human being on top of a horse, a big, like racing horse stallion. And if that horse were to jump up into the hair and buck enough times, that human's going to go flying and they're going to land on their ass. right? You'll be like, dang, I shouldn't have been riding that horse. And we're the horse. It's what we've got to realize. Like, we are the horse. And just because we're the horse doesn't mean we should get spanked as if we're a horse, with those little sticks that they spank the horse with. But I do think that, the time is here for us to start focusing on reclaiming personal power. Now, I've personally observed, and tell me in the chat what you guys think here in the live chat, and for those watching retrospectively in the messages, I've had like many more clients coming to me especially the last week or two, about entities. That I find interesting. These trends, the way it works, like they're not all entities, but I've just had a lot of clients coming to me. Some of them have been, and they're talking about these entities. And I think like right now where we are with the alignment of the 6 planets and this blood moon, and the moon being so powerfully in the house of Leo, which is sort of the apex point. Then there's also a contradictive house for the moon, right? The moon's rulership is Cancer. Sun rules Leo. The moon in Leo makes for quite a volatile fire-water scene. And so, when the moon's in Leo, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but one can become oversensitive. Yeah? Oversensitive, oversensitized. A little bit of a chip on the shoulder could be a result of that like energetic placement, if it's in a negative context. So, for those of you that are out there and you're experiencing unusual phenomenon things, remind yourself to feel good and to relax and give yourself positive feelings if you felt something, because it means that like, the beings are being considered, and it's important to keep it real before we allow anything to sort of hold any relevance in any open space, if that makes sense. I think this is where we're at. We are moving into a spiritual dimension right now. We are very much embedded within the age of Pisces. Don't let them tell you we're in the age of Aquarius, because that's new age bubbles. We are still in the age of Pisces, and Pisces is going deep, deep, deep into the unconscious. Spiritual forces are what we're dealing with. We're dealing with dreams. We're dealing with the unconscious psyche. We're dealing with the emergence of these deep spiritual currents, and also being very habitualized on one hand and looking for external definition, right? The whole element and the energy of Pisces is looking for an external input. It's not, Aquarius is all about independence. Like, don't tell me what to believe. The Pisces energy is like, no, we want to be part of a group. We want to be part of a school of fish. You see, why do we have our children in schools, right? Schools are for fish. Yeah, exactly. We're behaving like fish. It's part of the Pisces mindset. It's not necessarily a bad thing, because if you're on a good trajectory and the whole of humanity gets together in a school and they move in a good trajectory, everybody can benefit from what the few has benefited from. But if you happen to have an evil bunch of rulers dictating how life is in a bad way, well, then that's what the school will promote, right? Which is what it's been doing, making people more ignorant and pliable for that manipulation, rather than people becoming more empowered and strong as a result of it. I think that's the key takeaway from all of this. And the other thing I would say to you as well is, don't allow your own fears or your own impressions to at all make any relevant changes within you. I think like the core integrity is necessary, and I think it's important for us all to be able to sort of come together, and that's how we're going to move from the Piscean age into the Aquarian age. So we can utilize this Piscean groupthink if we learn to think in the correct trends and find other group members that are like us, going to think our kind of groupthink, and then our groupthink can can undermine the Pleiadian groupthink if we're careful and intelligent about how we do it. And of course, meditation. It's a big part of Pisces, right? Those two fish, they want to balance the forces. They want to bring a state of harmony, and because it's about rebirth, it's about perennial life. It's Jupiter being reborn, right? Sagittarius, the sage, is about the wisdom and the great knowledge and the teaching of as we talked about. We had this discussion here when we had a in-depth discussion about the centaur, right? The wounded healer. Well, when we're talking about Pisces, Pisces is now the fishes. And this is like the wounded healer has now actually made a kind of a transformation, if that makes sense. And to be the wounded healer, it was necessary for it to be explained that the balance of Jupiter taking these two forms, and when I speak of Jupiter, I'm not speaking of occult leaders and stuff. I'm speaking about the archetypal energy vibrational field, which is the planet's resonant radiation that's coming to us and affecting the consciousness, which is the substance of matter that is vibrating through this ball of wax that we're in and on and under and running through us. That frequency, it's all just vibrations, it's all frequency. That frequency has two extensions. When that frequency is taking in the in-breath of that frequency, shall we say, the in-breath of Zeus, is really what Pisces is. And so Pisces represents that going into the rebirth. And that rebirth will happen, right, with the dawning of the ages. That'll be a big part of the gestation. That's the virgin, right? The virgin. And the virgin represents being born. So, you know, I think that, yeah, brother, what are your thoughts? I don't want to get too carried away.
No, man, it's all good stuff. Well, my thoughts are that the younger Dryas, I believe, was it in the age of Leo, roughly 12,000 years ago, which would be quite interesting. Was it the age of Leo or Cancer? You're muted, I think. You're muted.
The easiest way to calculate is to go forward. So we go from Pisces. We've only got a little bit left. So we've got Aquarius, we got Aries, we got Gemini, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer. Cancer, and going through Cancer, yeah. So I'd say we're in the middle point now. Yeah. So it's around about Leo. That makes sense.
Yeah, which is interesting because, well, I'm going to be sidetracked here. That the Sphinx shows signs of flooding, and that supposedly that is symbolic of Leo and faces Leo. And there's a whole thing of the pyramids being built. I think they were built to protect people from the flood. They knew there was going to be a flood, and that's why it's shaped the way it is, and they're able to grow stuff inside it. But bit of a sidetrack there. The reason why I mentioned that is because it's relevant to this eclipse being in Leo, because if the younger Dryas, the flood happened then in Leo, it's interesting that lots of people are coming to you regarding entities and stuff now, because are we being flooded with entities? Are we being, like, not necessarily negative but positive too? There's a lot of energies going on now in the realm all around us, and people have shut them off to it. Like I was explaining with magic, they've been closed off to the field. That does not stop stuff entering it. I believe stuff comes in and it can get contained. That's what entertainment is. It enters and it gets stuck in the mind. And when your mind's split, that's how something else can live vicariously through you. So my point in this is that it's interesting that the Younger Dryas, the flood, was in the age of Leo, and now we have this moon, because what I sense with the energies is that there's a lot of potential all around us happening, and that if you ignore the field, that energy is just going to be going somewhere else. The so-called elites are going to be using it, whereas right now we can really tap into the energies. And if we focus on the, through not just our mind but through feeling, the sort of things that come to us, come through us, we can use that. It may need to be alchemized, but I'll use time as an example. I'll use Saturn as an example, and the goat and the dragon. That if we're going from Pisces to Aquarius, and Aquarius is ruled by Saturn and Pisces is ruled by Jupiter, it seems that they want to try and demonize this kind of energy or force, or some call it a god, the planet, which would be most relevant in the time we're going towards. So what I see a lot of demonization of Saturn. And if we're moving into Aquarius, which is ruled by Saturn, which is an air sign, so the mind, but it's the water bearer. So through the mind, that's where these waters can come through for our cup. But with a lot of people, their cup's too full or too empty. A lot of people's cups are full, so they're very arrogant, and then they won't let anything else through. They'll know all there is to know. Call them awake if you like. I'm awake. I'm already awake. I don't need to awaken anymore. And then you have the people's cups who are empty. Let's call them woke. The people who have already woken up, and that, they can be either or, whatever. But my point being that that we need to kind of let stuff come through us, let our cup be a vessel for things to come through us. And instead, people are kind of opening themselves up to anything to fill that space, or people are just so closed off that they think they have all the answers, and that they're not going to get anywhere that way. Neither of them is going to get anywhere. We need more awareness, more awe and airness. We need more airness of the mind and intellect. And then we need more awe. We need more movement and flow of the water, of the intuition. And then that's how we take flight and become dragons or griffins, whatever way you want to look at it. But we need to sort of lift off and become a little bit lighter, because we're kind of stuck, like in the myth of Narcissus. We're stuck just looking into matter, looking at the water, rooted to the spot, not really doing much, really. And that's where we are today, because that's due to no initiation, no rituals. I mean, people do have rituals, but they're counterintuitive. There's rituals done on the world stage which do draw these very powerful energies, which is the magic, which, like I said, flows through us and goes. We don't use it. What else I wanted to mention as well was that, so the water sign Pisces to Aquarius, which is an air sign, but the water bearer, so it's going to be bearing this memory, intuition. It's ruled by Saturn, and if they make us demonize Saturn and demonize time, and not kind of acknowledge or use this energy, then people are going to be split here. Their hearts and minds are going to be split. Because if you're closed off to energies outside of yourself, for example, the planets, if you demonize them, if you demonize symbols, those symbols are going to be useless to you. And those symbols, let's look at the swastika, the Apsis Mundi. Let's look at the heart chakra, or what water looks like when it's happiest, the hex, magic. That's being used. We're not using it. They've been demonized. So all of this stuff that's being demonized on these stupid Instagram accounts where they have thousands of followers, I think we need to start reclaiming this. And, you know, we spoke the other day about occultists and mystics and, you know, like basically the blind leading the blind. Well, what the eye signals to me is the seed. And for the eye to see, for the seeds to become an eye observer, it needs water and light, mem and ori, memory. And I think as we start transitioning to this age of Aquarius, which is aqua re us, when we remember the ways of the water, I think that there's going to be huge transformations with people. But if you don't know how to swim, if you don't know how to see with clarity and let the kind of the current scene, the currency, whatever, sort of, my point is the eye, the anchor point, the central observer is key, because if you don't have that point, you'll just get lost at sea with the current stream of what's going on around us. So I'll just leave it there. That is very important as we start transitioning, that we need to learn to swim, because we've kind of been caught in a net on the internet, in schools. It's the same thing. Bullshit. Taught by nuns in some cases. Nun is a fish, and nun also can mean nothing. So we've been taught a bunch of nothing. So now people need to tapping into their inherent wisdom or water, and start sort of like emerging. So today, what was the day today? I'll just finish with this, is that on the galactic calendar, it's a yellow rhythmic seed guided by flowering. Okay, that signals to me this seed blooming, and the seed is our core potential, which contains the light, contains everything that we ever were or will be, that we've been closed off to it because the well's been poisoned and we've been given a false light. But like I've said before, that if we dig stronger roots, dig deeper, going deep into the dark, into the negative, you know, sort of sifting through the mud, we'll be able to start to emerge and start to branch out. And last thing I'll add with that is the Algiz rune, which is a tri-cross, is the shape that leaves make. If you look at a leaf, it's the Algiz rune. The leaves, they go towards the sun, the true light, whereas the peace symbol was inverted, and that's kind of where we are, pushed down. But like how trees have their leaves, we need to be branching out. And look at the branches inside of us. Our veins are branches. We have ley lines in the earth, they're branches. The rivers, the waterways, they're branches. Neural pathways, they're branches. So my point is, as we start going inwards, because the stuff we've been given on the outside seems to be a load of bollocks, we need to start going inwards, trusting ourselves a little more rather than trusting the current narrative, that then we'll start expanding outwards. As we start going inwards, we start expanding outwards, and that's what the field is. And as we start connecting with the field, we'll start to feel what we truly are. So yeah, I'll finish up with that.
You know, I think there's a lot to looking at this, you know, understanding the principles of contraction and expansion, centrifuge and centripetal forces, and finding a way to navigate this ocean of consciousness. And consciousness is like, you're going to get a lot of people that are going to intellectualize consciousness, and they're going to think of it in their heads. You can't think of consciousness in your heads. The moment you try and relate to consciousness in your head, it becomes some weird nonsense related to words. But what you can embrace with consciousness is the experience of consciousness. And if you embrace the experience of consciousness on an experiential level, you can then feel it. And you can feel that consciousness has depth, it has substance. If you expand outwards with your mind, you can feel there's depth to it, you can feel there's substance in it, you can feel there's lots of movement, energy. And you can also recognize behind the movement, behind the energy, behind the substance, behind the depth, there is thought. And the thought sort of like is the glue that sort of like makes things stick to other things, you know, makes one thing relate to another thing, sort of, you want to consider it in such a way. So to appreciate that consciousness is really this expansive field of energy. And this expansive field of energy is bound by thought and, in a sense, bleeding thought through into our existence. And then we get these weird ideas of what consciousness means, you know. And the New Age has been like attacking us terribly. Like we are under attack. There's a war for our minds happening. And all the ancient wisdom is being corroded away and changed. For example, there's this word that's become a niche word, synchro mysticism, and it's on everybody's tongues. And I think like there's an element of truth. Everything is synchro mystical, you know, in the way that the one culture picks up the bones of another culture and moves on. Things get recycled. Recycling is a natural human instinct. What? If you're digging in the soil and you find a silver spoon, you're not going to use it. Oh no, that came from like the last era. I'm not going to use that silver spoon. It's too old. Of course you're going to use it. You're going to polish it off. You're going to use it. It's going to be your favorite spoon because it's pure silver. I know I would. Most intelligent people would. So whenever you find something that's of use from a previous culture, if it's no good, you're not going to throw it out. So I think this is an important point to reference and remember, because everybody wants to synchronize everything with everybody. And a lot of the time there's some rightness to this principle and this process, but you do get in circumstances where the person who's in the center of the story has to get up, right? Or they aren't really behaving in the most appropriate way. And everybody sort of turns a blind eye to that. And I think it represents where we are now in terms of energy. There are too many people turning a blind eye. If you see someone like having trouble, you should step in. How many TikTok and YouTube videos have you seen where a woman is getting like harassed and physically and emotionally and psychologically on a bus stop and everybody's standing there filming it with their phones? No bloke steps up and gives a little ear clipping, you know? Like by rights, it's like there's 10 men standing around and there's one bloke like beating up on a woman, and the 10 men could just walk up to him and go, listen, dude, keep your hands to yourself, please. You can talk to the lady, but like keep your hands to yourself. If the lady doesn't want to talk to you, leave her alone, you know? It's very easy, but they don't do it. No, they don't do it. They stand around and watch. Oh, he has a cool reel for my Instagram, you know? And see, here we are watching Instagram reels of people watching other people getting whatever. Like, how many times have you seen a woman getting mugged and people are filming it? I'm like, dude, how do you have the time to film this? Like, shouldn't you be like, you know, like if the crowds were more engaging, it would be if you mug someone and the crowds are going to engage and the crowd's going to shout, that guy's a thief, he robbed her, and that follows him around. Imagine you can run a mile and the crowds are like, that guy running there stole that woman's bag from like Jubilee Circus, whatever, you know. Sooner or later, cops gonna stop. He's gonna run out of air. People are gonna grab him and go, okay, hold on, let's call the cops. This guy. And send him back to the scene of the crime, and the cops will just be standing there waiting for him. He'll end up getting back there, and he'll take account for it. She'll get her bag back. I mean, just as an idea, you know, if we want to be safe, this is what we're talking about: safety. If we want to be safe, we need to learn to stand up for each other, because we're not safe at the moment. This illusion of safety is not real, right? The cops are not working for us. We need to make them work for us. If there's somebody being wrongfully approached on the street by a policeman, then everybody should stop. Imagine the cops pull somebody over on the side of the road and like the traffic stops and everybody gets out of their cars. They all come and see what's going on here. You pulled this person over. Why did you pull them over? What's your purpose? No, well, suspicious. What's exactly suspicious? Because we're all here and we are all witnesses and we don't notice anything suspicious. Well, what are you saying suspicious? What's your name and badge number, buddy? Oh, but then the cops will try and say, this is none of your concern. Please, you must move along, mind your own business. Then everybody could say, no, you are the one who stopped us. You stop one of us, you stop all of us. We want to know what's going on. We are sick and tired of you people thinking you can just pull cars over willy-nilly. We have seen enough YouTube videos of how cops behave. I saw a YouTube video the other day of the police planting evidence in someone's car. The idiot. He didn't know the guy was filming. And he says, just wait in your car for a moment. And he walks in and he takes a little baggie and he puts it in the back seat. And the guy is filming it. And he says, excuse me, what's that? And the cop goes, nothing. And the guy says, I'm filming, dude. I saw you put that little thing in my car. And the cop literally took a bag out of his pocket, little baggie with something, and he dropped it in the back seat, planting evidence in this guy's car. Because why? Because he's going to get a raise now, right? And maybe he's a dirty cop. Maybe he was going to try and make that guy pay money. They do this, right? Like even in the first world, they do this. like, oh, well, that's that now. Like, so what do you think what is it worth to you? You know, people would be like, dude, I'll give you $5,000. Just make it go away. You know what I mean? That's like another salary for the cop. If he can do that twice a month, right? That's another $120,000 a year. Ching, ching, you know? So I think it's up to us to protect each other. And we really need to start banding together. We need to start taking responsibility. And when it comes to these psychic spiritual attacks and the psychic spiritual invasion, which is what I like to call it, and I think you're quite right when you say that there's a flood, you know, a psychic flood, flood of entity, an entity flood. I would say it's like this. What is the Wi-Fi frequencies? Why have they all gone to 5G band? Why are these 5G bands that we have of cell phone towers, the 5th generation, got so many different bandwidths going up to how many gigahertz, right? What is it running up to, like 20 gigahertz or something at the moment, and it's going to go up to more. What are all these things that we're dealing with? What is all of this other what do they call it, the sky band of Tesla company of Musk, Starlink? What is that? Is that like a field, a radiation field? Okay, so it's not enough that we've got 5G. We now need Starlink. Plus, we've got our own Wi-Fi, right?
Well, can I just say with Starlink, what I sense it is that, why is it called Starlink? It's not linking stars. We have stars above and then stars within, stargates. So what if this Starlink that people have say such great internet in places where they don't have internet, that's one use for it. Okay, great. It can send you information from where. So what if it's creating a barrier between us and the sun, or us and the stars, the frequencies that are the stars that we can tune into? But if they're getting information, these satellites, whatever they are, from the stars, could they be sending it to people's minds via technology, via these Bluetooth headphones, via whatever? My point is that, is this a barrier between us and us and the gods, the stars, constellations? where we get this, like, where we get our information from, like out there, past the firmament, when we're dreaming, which is another thing that's under attack, is the imagination, is the dreaming. That is under attack too, but people are starting to tap in and go beyond. So now, Operation Starlink. So you create a barrier so that gets fed the information first, and then it's put into people's minds, like from thoughts. So rather than our thoughts kind of tapping out there, people's minds are getting implanted with, it's being fed through like an external source, like it's kind of a barrier, if that makes sense. And when you said the police planting evidence in the car, how do you spell the car? K-A or C-A-R? So if they implant, the police are just tools for authority. Well, who's the authority? Let's say authority claims to be the demiurge. Who are the tools of the demiurge? Can these entities implant false evidence in our car? Is this what the flood is? We see perhaps more and more of this false evidence being planted online in people's cars, in your car, in your cup, in your mind, false evidence being planted in there. Not necessarily online, yes, that, but also direct line into our minds, so that our cups have been kind of, the information has been distorted. And then that ties into the, so basically planting evidence in our field, I wrote down, but also a field is a wave is a field. So then you have 5G, 6G, 6.66G, blue beam, and then you have this disruption of the wave. This is why it's so important that people start feeling more, start tapping into the true wave, because we are probably due for a reset. Maybe it happens every 200 years. 1666 was a little one, 1886. You know, around now we have the Great Reset 2030. What they're doing is basically just, it's a flood, but it's a flood of information, but it's information that we don't need. We're bombarded by useful stuff all the time to distort the matter, which ties into Narcissus again. And the water's been distorted, so we can't connect to our internal systems, which is via the waterways. So I think that people need to becoming plumbers, spiritual plumbers, and start basically getting rid of all the crap that's blocked the paths. We need to become cleaners and start sort of like doing a bit of interior dusting, get rid of the cobwebs, start opening the books, the stories which are stored within, open them, like Bastian in the Never-Ending Story. And you know, we can't just be like, we have to have multiple things. We have to become multiple things. You have to be a plumber, a cleaner. I mean, there's many more I can use too, but you get my drift.
Yeah, totally. That's really where we are at, and also to become conscientious and conscious and aware. You know, you're talking about the Starlink. I think there's so many elements to Starlink as well. You know, because when we think about a star, right? The star can also represent. This is another element now. So a star is a hex, right? The idea of a star, right? The hexagram star, the enneagram star, right? The pentagram star. So these stars are all also gateways, right? So could Starlink be what 5G is, right? 5G, the pentagram. Okay. Then, and the G of the Freemason G, right? Which is a phi. It's a phi. You're going to hear everybody talking, oh, but this is this who's that guy who speaks the nonsense about the 8th Hermetic principle? Who's that guy's name? I forget his name. He reckons it's an 8th Hermetic principle. I mean, a lot of what he says is sensible, but he mixes and matches up New Age stuff with occult stuff, right? And he claims that he was part of a satanic group, and I'm like, yeah, you're not feeling you. But anyway, I think that this is the thing. We got to watch out for shulls. They are all around, and very often the shulls will be giving fairly good information, but you know, the bottom line, there'll be something off about it. Like I was watching this guy in an interview the other day, and I was thinking to myself, this guy's got severely high blood pressure, and the amount of aggroness and aggression in his is contagious. And if you were to listen to this guy for I couldn't listen to him. I was like, oh, this guy's just a bit much, you know. Because I think we need to be calm. We need to be calm and centered. Like if you want to excel at martial arts, don't get all hyped up. Get calm, get centered. If you need to defend yourself, get calm, get centered, pay attention, be awake. The more hyped up and extreme you get, the less you're paying attention. And attention is the game. They've got our attention. They've taken our 10, right? And they've put tension into the 10. And they've taken it for like pulling our 10 elements towards them, those 10 breaths, as they speak about in the Vedas, or the 10 energy centers, however you want to look at it, 10 digits, right? And 10 systems in our body, pulling the energies towards a particular point, creating that tension within us. And we need to be aware and reclaim our attention. And so the star gate is really what I think we're talking about when we talk about the star link. A link is like another word to a gate, because a gate is something that links one place to another place. So Starlink, this is what I was getting at with the entities, right? I believe that all of this extra technology that's been brought in is making it easier for entities to engage with us. Because entities require electrical in the air and around, right? They can use that energy, right? They need a bioelectrical field to engage. And if they don't have a bioelectrical field, well, synthetic, what we are creating are synthetic bioelectrical fields. I want you to appreciate this, people. Synthetic bioelectrical fields is what we're doing. Because we have a bioelectrical field, entities can engage with us through the sphere of thought because it's bioelectrical expression. What we have here is we have an internet, which is like a information network, like the brain, like the consciousness is bringing the information through matter. And that is creating a spectrum of frequencies through which information can move. It's like a synthetic bioelectrical field, and it even has a synthetic intelligence operating it, right? It's like an AI system. So it's not that far-fetched that these entities can then engage with that synthetic intelligence in the synthetic bioelectric field, and it gives them a foothold. And that foothold is into our sphere, and so they're more able to interact with us. And so we've got this 5G, we've got the Starlink. The Starlink, I think, is do you know how does a Starlink work? What's the numbers involved? Let's look at the specs. Starlink tech bounces off. How many satellites would you say it is? Do you know?
No idea. Well, how many satellites there are?
No. How many? It's got to be connecting to a whole lot, because it's got to act as a so there's active beam switching. Phased array antenna on the Starlink dishes act like electronic ears, allowing it to lock onto satellite track it across the sky, and instantly switch to the next, often while having dozens of potential satellites in view. So how long between Starlink satellite switch? That's badly switching between the arrays. Should have written that. 15 seconds to 4 minutes. Wow. So it switches connection every 15 seconds to 4 minutes, depending on the terminal type, firmware, and satellite density. Satellite pass overhead in about 4 to 5 minutes. Modern updated terminals can perform proactive handoffs multiple times per minute, with reactive switches taking less than 1/10 of a second. So that's how they optimize it. So under 10 seconds to 4 to 5 minutes. Isn't that interesting? Huh? Wow. So if there's a Starlink switch coming every 10 seconds to 4 minutes, let's say 4 minutes. So 4 minutes means means 15. 15 times 10 is 150. 150 times 2 is 300. 360. There were 360 Starlinks up in the sky. Wow. Is there more, or is that the number? Are there 360 satellites running in a, like?
I think there's 10,000.
10,000?
Yeah, over 9,700.
Okay, so then why is the switching of the arrays? So, okay, there's different regions.
Well, they plan to have over 40,000. Like, basically, on our radio the other day, BBC, they were joking and saying how what a great idea it would be to have loads of satellites covering the Earth like a giant disco ball, and then they can therefore with solar panels on them, so that we can get energy from these satellites from the sun. So they want to block out the sun with satellites and send the energy from the sun, but via these satellites here. Like, how delusional are these people? We already get energy from the sun.
Wow. So they must have, in each line, they must have that many. And then they must have grids, right? So they must have like 360, and then they must have a grid, like 20 miles down, another grid, another line, 30 miles, 50 miles down, another line, 50 miles down. So we must be getting a grid. So there must be Starlinks on either side of us. We must be linking to that. I wonder if it's a hexagonal shape. My gut says to me there might be a hexagonal pattern to it, because I think about the number 6. I think about the Merkaba. I think the Starlink is probably going to have quite a lot to do with these entities that more and more people are starting to become aware of. And I think it's also got to do with the shape changing, because I think there are a lot of shape changes on Earth. I think this is real. I think there are a lot of possessed people, and I think a lot of these people, like, the shape bleeds through who they are, right? And maybe there's a lot of people that have had DNA. They might not even know it themselves. They might have been DNA part of a secret program. All those abductions that have happened, the thousands and thousands and thousands of abductions, right, everywhere. And there's a lot of these reported. And I'm like, maybe 1 out of 10 people report it, right? So, like, we're talking lots and lots of abductions. And those are the people that even know about it, right? A lot of people don't even know it happened. They wake up, they go to a hypnotist one day, and they start remembering this crap that happened. And they're like, what the hell? I didn't know that happened. It happened like 20 years ago. So, yeah, there might be a lot of people, it could be hundreds of thousands or millions of people all around the world that have been abducted. And they could have been part of secret breeding programs that they don't even know about. What do? They go inside you and they collect sperm. They go inside women and what is a common abduction theme? They're sticking tubes inside my penis. Women, they're sticking tubes inside my vagina. They're collecting sperm and eggs. Well, what are they doing with sperm and eggs? They're creating some hybrid and then they're putting it into women. And a lot of people get pregnant but don't know. Who knows?
Well, yeah, also a lot of the abductions were blamed on aliens, but it turns out that most, if not probably all of them, were actually military. But also, with regarding all of these satellites and the amount of people coming to you of like entity, like attachment issues, whatever, could some of these abductions become more common? And is this why there's this UFO disclosure coming this year? Because there aren't going to be abductions. My foresight is that there's going to be more intrusions in the psyche, and that people are going to think that they've been abducted by UFOs, but really it's people messing with their minds. So it could be while they're dreaming, when they're awake, but they could think that they're in a facility. They're just in their minds, and then this is where the sort of like altering can happen. Not being taken out of their body or taken to a military place or abduction, but just in the mind, in the psyche. And I don't think people would need to leave their homes because we have all of the technology installed here already. So with that, it just is so important that people have both a sword and a shield. But it's better to be a gardener in the war than what's the word? A warrior. It's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. And a good warrior knows that you have to have discipline and to be calm and collected. But at the same time, we need to, by sword, I mean, words. Words is the best weapon there are. Your words should become weapons. The axiom that cuts through all the bullshit. But at the same time, you need to have some kind of defense too, because a lot of people are just out there talking, attacking, but they don't have any psychic defense, which is so important. And not many people know about that or have ever heard about it at all. And I think the more and more that this artificial infrastructure, this Starlink, 6G stuff is going on, more and more people are going to be attacked with their psyche, and that it's going to be blamed on extraterrestrials, UFOs. It's not. It's our government doing it. That's World War III, and the end game is to have everybody thinking the same. That is the Ahrimanic force of the we, the collective. And there was a little trial run in 2020 with the we, the collective, public health, a little bit of the digital infrastructure to see how would you enter and control somebody's perception. Well, you divide them first, you split them off 6 feet apart, get them to wear a mask, maybe perhaps get them breathing in via the mouth. I'm not sure what is it called, bad juju or something. I'm not sure what the correct terminology is, but constantly, what are you putting? What are you even breathing that way? Smoke a real cigarette, And so many kids are doing this as well, through the mouth. So you have the mask, the covering of this, of breathing in, taking stuff in, not the air coming out, just all of this stuff going into the mouth. Anyway, I think that in 2020 we saw a little bit of the dark occultists practicing their spellcraft, and that was just a little practice. And I haven't heard many people talking about the dark magicians and what they did. People seem to have like got bored of it, not really talk about it too much. They're like, oh yeah, COVID, oh, you remember what happened there? Yeah, not falling for that again. What aren't you falling for? Like, do people really know and understand the mechanics or the magic of that, the spellcraft? I think that really warrants delving into another time. So perhaps we can do that at a later stage, like how the magic works, so people don't fall into that trap again. I've been really slack with my content, uploading videos myself. I will get there. It's just, you know how it is being a parent and stuff and having the time. But I will get there. But yeah, with COVID 2020 vision, they were practicing some of their little occult magic spells then, and I think that this is just gonna happen again, but then they're gonna hone in on people's weaknesses. So I think it's important that people recognize that, yeah, it's happened, don't forget about it. Now's a good time to, like, stuff that's happened in the past is good to like look at, and then you can kind of dissect it further and work out, and you can keep going. So that's how astrology works, I guess, is like patterns of the past, where the planets have been aligned. You can kind of work out where we are now and where we're going. So people need to do that with information. Go back and look at 9/11, COVID, whatever, all of these psyops. Go back and look at how they were orchestrated, and then you will be better prepared to not fall into those traps again.
Sorry, it took me a little while to navigate here to get my thing done, because while you were talking, I took upon myself to feel cheeky and to make a cute little meme, and I'm going to show it to you guys now. You got to have a sense of humor. So I'm going to flash it on the screen in a minute. But I think you're completely right, this whole story that we've been sort of learning to sort of just normalize, and how many people are basically, falling for the new thing. Like, okay, here's a good example. While all of this is happening, they've got us talking about the Epstein files, right? And what purpose does that actually serve? Like, it's an important thing. We've got to focus on it. We've got to be, but what else is going on? Just exactly what is the level? What is the level of sort of mind self-control that we are putting up with here? And you've got to stop and think. You've got to stop and ask yourself, like, when does this end? And I think we're at that point now where we literally have to take responsibility and start saying to ourselves and to each other, it's time for us to start paying attention, because what laws are changing locally where you live? And I think that's quite an important question. We know that when these things are happening, that there's usually some kind of massive restructuring, new laws, new regulations. It could be to do with school, it could be to do with children, it's probably to do with food. It usually often has a lot to do with food, children, and such. And, so.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because I think the next week or two, they're going to be here in the UK changing something to do with children and being in school and being vaccinated, because I saw a video that somebody shared of the NHS board meeting, and they mentioned something about how they can't disclose what was going to be happening in the coming weeks because it's not in the public domain at the moment. But I mean, that could be a blessing, because people can be like, well, I'm not going to send my kid to school then if they have to prove that they've been jabbed. So that is something which I think is going to be changing here in the UK, and it could be a blessing, because there'll be more people home educating, and then there'll be more places, it'll be more easily accessible for sure to do that. But that's something which is coming here in the UK soon, that they've been talking about.
You know, I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me? Yeah. So here's the meme that I was working on, and I think from now on, this is what we should call it. Okay. This is I hereby officially rename. I hereby officially rename the Great Experiment. And I think you guys might appreciate it. It's quite insightful. This was the mission. This was what they were doing to us. They were trying to effectively turn us all into, yes, you guessed it, mouth breathers, right? The great mouth breathing exercise of 2020, because that's really what this was about. You couldn't breathe through your nose in those things, could you? Did you ever? Like, I only wore one like once or twice, and I was like, no, screw this, I can't do this. You know, only when I went into like a shopping center and there was like security guards there and like bloody cameras, and I was like, okay, put it on quickly. But like I only went in once in the whole COVID. I was that like, I stayed away. But I think this is really, they want us to be mouth breathers. And what's the association with being a mouth breather, right? Being a mouth breather doesn't make you any, and I'm sorry to whatever woman face I've used there. I just grabbed a picture from the web and just put that on there. I thought it makes perfect sense for where we're at. I do feel that there is something about the nose. I find when I breathe through my nose, I'm more calm. Have you noticed that? More in control of my thoughts. If you breathe through your mouth, you're disconnected from your sense of smell. And I think when you're disconnected from your sense of smell, you're disconnected from your intuition, in a sense. And you're not tuning in and reading effectively. So there's something to be said about learning to breathe through our noses, because it's like if you don't breathe through your nose, what happens is those ducts close. And then you can't breathe through your nose, right? Because the nose doesn't need it open anymore. But when you actually, if you want to open the ducts in your nose, breathe through your nose. Those of you that don't know. Be patient, don't force it, breathe slowly, go without air. Feel like you're getting a bit dizzy, that's fine. You won't pass out, you won't lose consciousness. What will happen is you'll get to a point where your body starts to scream. You go like, wah! And then you just wait, slowly, gently breathing in. And suddenly you feel this clicking sensations in there, like click, 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 and then suddenly it opens up. So I think like there's something to be said about that. Breathing through your nose might not sound like a big deal, but it is a big deal. And finding some way to actually keep yourself engaged with nature, very important. Like me personally, I love trees. I've also got a lot of animals around. I'm lucky. I make a point of always having animals around, even though they're cheeky little buggers. Derek is the one cheeky bugger. And that boy is the cheeky bugger. I was having to shout out the door at him just now because he was messing with the bird cage out there. As you can see, the bird cage on the other side, outside my double doors here. And it's like there's like a big quad. And on the other side of the quad, there's a bird cage. And he's like, oh, I'm far away from Daddy. Daddy can't reach me. Oh, Daddy's watching, buddy. Don't you worry, brother. They get older, they get cheekier. The cheekiness when they're young is sweet. When they get older, they start to become a lot more dangerous. Like my son smashed up a really expensive pair of goggles, right? So I had like a few sets of like diving goggles, yeah? And he smashed one up completely. But his instincts is he smashed up the good one, right? The glass, the really nice one, nice glass. Like one's designed to go deep in the water. A good set of goggles, you know, that keeps the pressure off your eyes. And anyway, that's what they do. They get older, they become more destructive, they break everything. Boys, that's not the same for girls. Everybody I know that's had girls, they tell me it's a different story. You worked at a zoo. No, working at a zoo will not help. Namaste, Commander. Working at a zoo is the opposite, because you're working in a, it's like a loony bin for animals, right? That's what a zoo is. What is a zoo? A zoo is a bunch of animals that have been driven crazy because they're living in cages, right? They're disconnected from their own nature. They're disconnected from everything, and they are depressed. And now you are around depressed animals. It's going to be depressing, man. Imagine, like, all you want to do is come there with a set of lock cutters, right? One night, like, just cut open all the locks, like free all the animals and lose your job. You know, it's a tough call, isn't it? Like, when that job is what's paying your salary to keep your roof over your head and food in your belly and your family is safe, you know. Yeah, Howard. Yeah, totally, man. These little creatures have done nothing wrong. The only thing they did wrong was to be maybe too trusting of humans, right? Or maybe not even too trusting of humans. Humans maybe got hold of their parents and like sent their parents to the underworld and they took them as babies, you know? Very often what humans do. Everybody smash the like, share this video if you think we're not just vomiting nonsense. I don't think we are. I think we've got a little bit of sense that we're sharing here. I just wanted to just round off with a few little things about understanding this thing about just how ancient the stories go, right? Like, we're talking about Atlantis. We're talking about when the original tides of Atlantis were sending out people with high consciousness into the world before the sinking of Atlantis. You can call that, it's got many names, right? We could be speaking about the Bharat, if we're speaking about India or whatever. And there was this sort of realization that that place was going to be sunk, and they sent out people in all different, and this is why I say there have been many floods, right? There have been floods left, right, and center. There have been floods, smaller floods. Big love, Commander. Om Shanti. Thank you so much for your support. It's means a lot, as always. I think you're my first member. You're the first member that's joined this channel. Big love and big blessings to Commander HHL. I think like we've been sort of in this state of psychological unrest for thousands of years. And it got better a little while ago. And they had to reset us. And so they've now learned that they need to reset us every few hundred years. And I wonder how long the resets have been going on for, right? And every time they reset us, they downgrade our crap. Have you noticed how every piece of architecture from history is better than the architecture in the modern times? Like, you know, seriously, like the what we are getting now compared to what we had 30 years ago is not good. What we had 70 years ago, what we had hundreds of years ago was amazing. What seems to be thousands of years ago was like, wow, you know, and whatever came before that has probably been washed away, you know. Time does that. So I think there's definitely this push towards moving us in a direction of a reset, and we're heading there right now. So we need to reject all of their new crap, all of their new information, as much of their new technology as what we don't need. Because these brotherhoods, these Saturn dark cult cubes. Oh, and in an occult group recently, there was a discussion about how Saturn is evil because Saturn is this and the black sun is evil. And I want people to understand that these concepts are not evil. The Saturn is not bad, right? Capricorn is not evil. Capricorn is not bad. Yes, Capricorn represents number 8, represents material gain, but like that's important. If you've got a family, you want to look out for your family. It's your duty to try and provide for your family as best as you can, right? Your children, for example, animals get it. Have you seen how industrious animals are? They don't sit around and watch TV on their butts. If you watch animals, they're always doing something. Birds,
well,
they're
don't
like
forget about Aquarius as well. Obviously,
yes.
the goat has been scapegoated, and we've got the fire goat next year. So I'm expecting some more of that crap next year too. But this is probably the transition between Pisces and Aquarius, because what they're doing is they're making us scapegoat. They're making Capricorn the scapegoat when they're using the energy of Saturn, which is Aquarius, which is the water bearer, because I see water to do with Saturn. Water is how you bring the unseen into seen. It's like when you bear water, that's the matter in which we're in. And I think that this is why Capricorn's being demonized, potentially, the goat, while the elite are using their intellect, the air, to bear water. That's what Aquarius is. It's an air sign, water bearer. For me, that's a builder. That's powerful building energy, to have intellect and know how to bring it into matter, because there's lots of people who have intellect or ideas, but they don't know how to bring it into matter. So they've demonized Saturn by using this scapegoat, but the powers that be, that they use Saturn because it is one of the many energies which help us to navigate wherever we are. So I'm glad you brought that up.
From an occult perspective, I just want to point out what Saturn represents. So Saturn, obviously, we know is the reaper of corn, the reaper of grains, the green man, Father Time, the guardians of time, lords of time. Saturn, the black cube, represents the etheric plane, represents the structure. Manifesting that structure represents moving towards the number 8, monetary gain, success, and taking one's fate into one's own hands. This is a very powerful theme of Saturn. There's a heavy element of responsibility, taking responsibility. It's a deep, dark Saturnian element. Take responsibility for what's happened, what you've done. Don't sit around and cry and feel sorry for yourself. Pick up the pieces and rebuild. It's very much a dynamic goat energy, which is very harsh energy. Goats, they just keep going. Any climate, any weather, they climb up ridiculous cliffs. If they fall down, they just keep sticking out their little clankers until they catch onto a piece of ledge and up there. Once a goat starts going up, it never turns around and comes down. It only keeps going up till it's over the top. It doesn't give up. It doesn't know how to. It's quite a lot of tenacity, those little buggers, and they're cheeky as hell. If you ever have face-to-face with goats, never challenge a goat on a mountain ledge because you will lose. But what does Saturn represent and the cube represent? And the black sun is obviously, there's an unconscious level which relates to Henry got a fright because the cockatiel was walking over his head. A little Pekingese dog. Where are you? There you want to come up? Huh? Okay. Don't walk on his head. He doesn't like it. It represents the unconscious shadow self that we've recreated. So it's an echo. Let me just flash up the Saturn square quickly, just because I love the Saturn square. It's just so. Hold a moment. I don't need to do that. Give me a second. I've actually got a picture of the Saturn square, which is better. And just let me get out of all of this nonsense. Get out of all of this nonsense. Get out of all of this nonsense. There we go. I actually have a picture that I can flash, which I think is a better option, an image file.
So
Saturn.
even the Saturn square has been called evil on Instagram videos I've seen. They show that, and they show how it's evil. Like, I can't comprehend some of these people.
Well, it is what it is, you know. These people are a bit crackpot. They're a bit nuts. So when we look at the Saturn square here, Saturn, what was the point I was going to make? I lost the point now, running after the Saturn square. Let me take a moment to go back. Yes, the idea of the industry and Saturn's focus upon generating, right? You can see that there is within this the hexagram, right? The hexagram on both sides. If you look at the number 6, the block number 5, on the top left corner, there's a hexa lines going through it, right? Which is essentially 3 crosses, which represents space, right? Represents height, depth, and width. And the height, depth, and width is what represents the 3 dimensions of the space. But what you can also see here, if you look very closely, is you can see block number 3, block number 9, right? And block number 4. That represents a structure. Block number 1, block number 7, and block number 6. So the line that goes from 6 to the point on 5 where there's the orange line that meets the blue line and the green line, and the green line that meets the orange line and the blue line in block 5 makes like a little arrow. And what you've actually got is a perspective, right? I don't think this thing is done correctly to scale. If it was done correctly to scale, you might find that those lines would be more like cubic. What we're looking at here is 2 cubes coming together, effectively, what we should be looking at. And these 2 cubes coming together represents the altar of devotion. And that upper cube and downer cube represents the etheric cube and the physical matter cube, and the cube within our consciousness and the cube within matter, which is the external sphere of consciousness as opposed to the internal sphere of consciousness. Well, consciousness is bivalent, as you can see here, with the centrifugal forces and the centripetal forces, as we can see, and they're represented here by 8, 7, and 9, and 1, 2, and 3. And the 7, 8, and 9 represent the potential of the magnetic current, and the 1, 2, and 3 represent the particular current, right? Specifically. And we can quite clearly gain a sense of perspective here when we look at this, that if these 2 arrows are pointing towards each other, they also represent 2 cubes coming together. And the 2 cubes are like really fundamental to understanding the structure of space and of time, right? Because we have the cube is representing something other than the cube. In fact, we're talking about the Merkaba as well, which is like an inverted cube, if you want to consider what the difference is between a Merkaba and a cube. And so Saturn represents binding. Can you see that picture? That it's almost like if you were to just like be a child and take all your knowledge and intellect out of the picture and just look at it. Doesn't it look like the directions for how to tie a knot? Like scouts or something?
Well, what I see is the 1, 6, and 7 looks like the outside of the cube, and then the 3, 4, and 9 looks like inside the cube. Can you see that? The way the line goes.
Yes.
Yeah, so the 3, 4, and 9 looks like the inside of a cube, and then the 1, 7, and 6 is the corner of the outside of the cube.
Yes, exactly.
And it's interesting that the 2 and the 8 is that the moon and Saturn.
Yes.
On the Enneagram. So then you have the Saturn moon matrix with Mercury in the middle.
Yes.
that's very interesting. That's kind of the outside and the inside of the cube, and then that's bound by the Saturn Moon matrix, but it's Mercury that flows between it all.
Yes, and you can see the Venus and or the Venus and Uranus connection here as well, which is quite interesting, you know. And they all dance around Mercury. Mercury's in the center. So what this represents is binding. So Saturn, if you're looking at it from a magical perspective, let's say you're practicing magic. What is Saturnian magic? I saw somebody in a occult group talking this fluffy nonsense. I had to stop and say, dude, Saturn isn't evil. Saturn's not Satan. Saturn's not. What Saturn is binding magic. And yes, you are correct. The elites have used Saturnian magic on us. Why have the elites used Saturnian magic on us? Because the elites are binding us. They are using binding magic to bind us, to make us be stuck so that they can control us. That's exactly what they've done. They are binding our ability to expand our mind. They are binding our ability to seek liberty. They are binding our ability to know who we are with the education. So the education binds the ability to be spontaneous, to be who you are, to find yourself. The media binds the ability for you to find natural self-expression of your emotions. Money binds your ability towards liberty, right? As does legislation and the control structures related to money, the police, the courts. The courts are already there more about money. As we know, they come from the maritime institutions. That's why they have to mimic maritime. This is why the courts have to dress up like Saturn, like in England still. They've got to wear like fake gray hair and a black gown, make them like, I represent Saturn here, Father Time, as a judge. And so there's an Anubis connection here when we look at that, right? There's an Anubis connection to this whole idea. And Osiris. There's an Osiris connection to the whole story of this. The judge, judging for the time. Who judges of it? Like when you leave this world, you have to be judged. We're going to the underworld. The whole story is picked up here. So basically, they're using Saturnian magic, Saturnian systems. This is why the Saturnian glyph and the Saturnian number square is so useful for decoding what they are doing, decoding the magic that's being used, is because this is their rulebook, right? This is how they do it. This is how they do it. Number 5 in the middle, Mercury, the Mer. That's got to do with maritime law, maritime sea, trade agreements, international regulations, controlling you. That's number 8, number Saturn. You have to have money, and with the money comes the control. Number 6, they control us in the next corner. Number 6, by changing our media and our entertainment and our arts. They poison our arts. They control us on number 4 in the other corner. They control us. Number 4, they use our schooling education system, right? And the education system is how they control us in the most fundamental way, and to our beliefs and our structures, fixed structures of knowledge. On the other corner, number 2, the silver screen. They are programming our perception, and our perception of who we are is programmed through Hollywood, the silver screen. And that's the element of the moon to reprogram our ability to sublimate, and so that when we go to sleep at night, we're dreaming all the crap that they've pumped into our consciousness. People, smash a like button and share the show. Every people that comes past in the future, whenever. In the center and the heart of it, as we said, we've got this notion of Mercury. Mercury is obviously related to controlling the flow of money, controlling the flow of the legislation, which moves across the ocean. They need to export and import everything. It needs to be a global society. So they're using that power of number 5 in the center. And then we can see dancing around that's the 1, the 3, the 7, and the 9, right? And the 9 is interesting, right at the top in contrast to the 1. How do they control us there? The 1 and the 9, that's number 19. That's the sun. That's periodic table potassium. Potassium has got to do with the growth of plants. By the 19 of the power of the sun, that works in conduit with the power number 8, right? Because like the 8 is fundamental to this whole story of controlling our food, using the money. They can control this, but they can also control us through our physical control of the sun and the energy of the sun, like you were talking about, trying to remodel the planet. Number 7, and they give us false religion. They give us false occult therapeutics. They have AI systems now that are teaching people Crowley rubbish for magic. Crowley wasn't a real magician. The dude was a fraud. He was a joke. He was a drug addict. He was lost. He was passed away alone. His kids didn't want to know him. And he basically never was a real ceremonial magician to begin with. He read a lot of books. He had a lot of intellectual knowledge. He was somebody that was more of a theoretical magician than an actual magician, but he was able to sell himself off as a real magician because of all the drugs. And so number 7 is also drugs. They also use drugs on us, the pharmaceutical industry. They want to pump us full of pharmaceuticals. And number 3, that's the imagination. Remember how they used to pump out the American dream? This is the American dream. They want us to have this crazy dream, this American dream, or this dream of how we can make the world a better place by culling the world population, whatever nonsense they're pumping into our minds. So you can see how they're using each one of those numbers in a successive pattern. And it's part of an important fundamental structure that they use. They're using the rule book of Saturn's square. And can you see the glyph? What do you see in the glyph? There's the left and the right, politically. Can you see the left and the right is spinning around a central axis? This is how the energy fields, is either the Pingala, the left and the right fields of consciousness, the ascending and the descending field. They have to have this at the center, the tree of life, everything's spinning around the tree. So they have to have the left and the right swapping. So this is what they do politically. They swap the left and the right, swap the left and the right, so that you think you're voting for the left, but you're voting for the right. You think you're voting for the right, you think you're voting for the left. People don't even know what it means to be the left or the right anymore, because every few years it switches. And so you can see even that blip is being used. And notice from both directions, from the direction of 4 and the direction of 6, everything's moving towards number 5. And 5 is maritime. 5 is universal communication, the internet. So here we go. Here's another way that Mercury is being used. They've got us all connected through this communication platform, this internet. But in that internet communication platform, they've got all these other elements bombarding our senses. So they're using these numbers, and it begins and ends with number 5. Did you notice that? Begins and ends with number 5. Mercury. And so this is like the knowledge of alchemy. They are using alchemy to control us and to manipulate us and to put us into their little patterns of control. And we feel like we're trapped. We feel like we're stuck, but we're not stuck. We're not stuck. And the card of Capricorn tells us the story very clearly. We feel like we're trapped by these things. Like let's pull it up, the Capricorn card. Let's put it up, baby.
Well, just before you do, very quickly, there's 2 X's there, which you pointed out earlier, the 2 corners of the cube, which is interesting because number 20 is Anu's number, who'd be associated with Saturn, and the number 20 tarot card is the Judgment card, which shows 3 black coffins or cubes, but people emerging from them out of the sea, out of the water, which ties into Mercury, the center point of Saturn, which is associated with water and air, and then therefore the age of Aquarius. And so I thought I'd point that out, the links between the Judgment card and Anu both being number 20 and 2 X's there as well. And that Mercury's really associated with water, and that's the center of Saturn. That's how we go in, and that's how we go out. We're born in water, and when we die, we travel through water, and then water brings change as well. So we were talking about the flood earlier in water and how important it is to learn to swim and navigate the waters. And I guess we do that using mercury.
That's very interesting. You know, mercury is also how we refine gold, isn't it?
I did not know that. Interesting.
It's one way. I know they use arsenic. They use other things. I mean, when you spin mercury with organics, you can create like spinning things, right? How do we create those things that changes our DNA? Is that using mercury? You know, they've got these electromagnetic fields. Electromagnetic fields generated by spinning mercury structures I think that is how they so scientific research, let me show you this. Scientific research, can you guys all see the screen? Yeah, everybody's seeing the screen. Yeah, good. So scientific research regarding electromagnetic fields, EMFs, generated by spinning mercury focuses primarily on magnetohydrodynamics, plasma physics, and experimental dynamo models, such as the Carl Rusche and the Riga, rather than the direct genetic applications. Right. Why are we speaking about genetics? Mercury vortex engines, they're called. Discussed discussions of Vimanika Shastra. So this is like electromagnetic field generation, highly conductive liquid metal. When spun in a magnetic field subject to electric currents, it acts as a conductor in a homopolo motor configuration, creating a vortex and generating electromagnetic fields. And guess how? There we go. That's what I wanted to show you guys. Right? This is what we were aiming at. Thank you, Google, for like not leaving me in the lurch. Biological genetic effects of EMFs. Right? So this is all. Studies have shown that external magnetic fields can cause genetic consequences. How do you think they splice genetics, people? Right? They use electromagnetic fields. Right? How do you think they generate those electromagnetic fields? Well, this is where it gets interesting. Where it gets really interesting. Okay, good. That worked. That's where it gets really particularly interesting. So they generate these electromagnetic fields in such a fashion. And I can't see, I'm getting so fed up with StreamYard. I'm just getting fed up with StreamYard. I cannot control the size of my picture. The size of my picture now on the screen is that big. Or I make the picture bigger than the words are that small that I can't see them on the side of the page. And there's no way to fix it. I've been messing with my computer. I've been messing with everything. StreamYard's changed something about their infrastructure a while ago, and it's become like really annoying. And there doesn't seem to be much that can be done to fix it. So if I'm not responding to you guys in the chat, please forgive me. It's because I can't see you. And I'm going to say,
Commander said that in his country they use mercury to get water out of the rivers. No, they use mercury to get gold out of the rivers. So I think he's in Australia. So yeah, I'd never heard that before. That's interesting. You're muted, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was talking about with gold, right? They use arsenic and stuff to purify the gold, but they use electromagnetism to pull the gold out of stuff as well. It's more newer technology, shall we say, using this technology that we're talking about right here. Yeah.
By the way, I'm going to have to shoot off in 5 minutes or so.
Me too, brother.
Unfortunately.
3 hours.
Yeah.
Listen, everybody, we will be back on Saturday as always. I must speak to Tall Tree. I don't know if we're going to do a session on Friday. I don't know if you're free on Friday. I'll check in with Tall Tree. I'll check in with you as well if you're about. I think I'm going to be online tomorrow. I think I'm going to be online tomorrow. I believe I will be. So that's tomorrow will be, gosh, what time is it? I think I'm supposed to be on tomorrow at, if I'm not mistaken, let me take a look and see. Let me check and double check and make sure I got it in the check. Yeah, you know, I think it's actually not even to do with StreamYard. I think it's to do with Google. Like Google has changed some of their stuff in the way that it works. And it's really, really annoying. And it's like, it's really like a pain in the butt when you think about it. So there we go. So where would we see? 4 o'clock London time. So 4 o'clock London time tomorrow, I'll be online, I think. I think I'm being interviewed by another channel. I think it should be streaming to my channel as well. So yeah, everybody, I hope you guys have enjoyed our little chit chat, our little tongue wag, our little nig nag. As always, dear brother, it's been a total honor. Shinobi Kenobi's channel.
I do have something to say before we leave.
Yeah, man. Yeah, fire away.
So, but you were talking about Mercury, and obviously it being that, so spinning Mercury can like defy gravity, which I guess is density. So hence the wings on Mercury's sandals, and him being the messenger of the gods. And it's interesting that the number 5 in the center of the Saturn square is Mercury, because Kairos, who represents the opportune moment or like flow time, a different perspective than Kronos. It's Kronos is like the old crone, and Kairos is the more younger sort of perspective of time, the more fresh perspective, I guess, which is opportune moment and like flow time. So it's interesting that if you look at Kairos, Kairos, he's pictured with wings on his sandals, much like Mercury. I would say they're the same kind of energy. So I've always kind of seen Mercury with Saturn. How it's interesting is because Saturn rules time and structure and limitations, amongst other things, and like boundaries. So that's Saturn. But with the Mercury in the center of that Saturn square, Mercury, the messenger of the gods, which, you know, is us. We're the messengers of the gods. We're vessels for the guardians of dimensions that kind of come through us. That basically this energy of the opportune moment or flow time can dissolve these barriers, dissolve structure, dissolve time, and dissolve space. So using Kairos time, or I guess Mercury, and this vortex energy, that's why the central point, to become the central point of Saturn, and let time and space just move around you and not be caught up in the wave or the flood, be it water or light. Both are linked to time, both water and light. So time is just moving around us, but we're just in the center, we're the central point. And then to not get caught up in this narrative or that narrative, just stay anchored, stay central, and get a direct line with source, without all of the sort of, what's the word? Either the you know, getting caught in the mud, basically. You know. So yeah, I just wanted to say that Mercury is really linked with Kairos, and then I've always linked Kairos with Saturn because obviously it's to do with time as well. It's a new perspective of time. So yeah, I just wanted to finish with that.
Yeah, brother, totally. And I totally get where you're coming from. Time is a great mystery, totally great illusion. I'm going to go deep dive into time. I'm going to do a deep dive. I'm going to be doing some actual videos as well, peeps. I've been working on a video that I plan to release. I've been collecting a bit of resources, which is going to synchronize the synchronous connections between the Vedic and the throwing in some of the Egyptian and the Sumerian deities, which I think is going to be quite interesting. We covered some of that in this chat already, but I'm going to go into some more detail, give like a more comprehensive breakdown. I think it's going to be useful for us to understand just exactly how universal these concepts are. And whatever you do, when you hear these people out there, when they're bad-mouthing this group or bad-mouthing that group or bad-mouthing this group, realize that they have picked up a few small pieces of the puzzle. And the worst thing is that I've noticed it's very often the people that are speaking about these topics speak with such absolution. They say it's that one, that's what it is. Instead of realizing, like, hold on, it's not black and white, A or B or C. It's A, B, and C. And when we start to like appreciate that, like the depth and the quality of what it is that we're looking at, then I think it makes it easier for us to keep it real and be able to get perspective. So be careful of those people. Watch out for that nonsense about the 8th Hermetic principle. I'm going to have to do a video about that too, because what he's talking about is the 7 Hermetic principles. He's actually talking about the 7th Hermetic principle, but he doesn't understand the Hermetic principle. So he says it's an 8th Hermetic principle. He doesn't understand what the 7th Hermetic principle represents, but what he's doing is he's talking about qualities of the 7th and qualities of the 4th, and he's merging them together, and he's not really fully conscious. So like I've noticed these people have got like huge followings and they just make up stuff randomly.
Is the 8th one as is right, so is left? Is that what it is?
No.
Oh, because that's another one I've just searched, and it says the hidden 8th superfluous hermetic principle encapsulated in as in right, so is left. That's what it's come up when I've searched. I've never heard of it before.
This is what I'm saying. His name's Mark Passio, and he's talking about what he thinks is the last hermetic principle. And then he talks about how he was in these like, satanic groups and stuff. And I'm like, seriously? Like if you were like really in the occult and you were a practitioner, you should actually be able to appreciate the hermetic principles. But if you read about them from books and you're passing yourself off on something that you're not, then you might not have. And so it's actually quite easy to be able to tell who the people that are like real. And so it makes me wonder, why would he be being dishonest? Well, who pays him? Whose payroll is he on? I think counterintelligence is a big thing. We've got to watch out for it. There are a lot of shrills out there. And everybody that's talking nonsense isn't a shrill. A lot of the people that are talking nonsense just genuinely believe what they're saying, I think. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. But at the same time, I think, we need to be careful what we digest and what we take on board, because, I can barely see the screen. I've got the format, it's so small. But yeah, I see there are 13 of you here still with us. Sending you all so much love, so much blessings. See you guys tomorrow at 4 p.m. UK time, or see many of you maybe on Friday, let you know if we're going to be on with Talk Tree. And on Saturday, the same time, 6 p.m. UK time, 4 p.m. UK. 4 p.m. London time, and 11 a.m. EST New York time. See you on Saturday. Otherwise, I'm going to be loading up a couple of videos, so you might want to check out my channel as the week goes by. I plan to put one up in the next 2 days. I'm also going to be preparing the Enneagram series. So yay, we're going to break through each number one by one, go into the Enneagram and get a good sense of the Enneagram system. There's the Enneagram right there. You can see where my face was. And that's the traditional Enneagram as it's been represented from the Chaldean times. It's not that new age Enneagram stuff that was created by the people that were schooled by our universities and turned into mindless blocks of thoughtless lumps that just clump out information because they were manhandled by the finances and the money of who started the universities? Who funded it? The Rothschilds. Come on. The Rothschilds says it all. So we're not talking about, from now on, I'm going to refer to that as the Rothschilds Enneagram. I think that's a great way to put it. The Rothschild-sponsored Enneagram, as opposed to the old traditional Enneagram that wasn't to do with the Rothschilds. But, I hope you guys all have an absolutely awesome day. Big love, big blessings. And if you got any last words, brother.
No, I'll just finish it with Rothschild means red shield, and what that signals to me is that we have red shift, or like red is the furthest light spectrum we can see. So what that red shield is just stopping us seeing any further than the cube they want to keep us in. There's probably plenty more with that, but it just stops us seeing beyond. It's a fog for our minds, basically. Ignorance of the mystery. Just red shield. It's a barrier to stop us having foresight, I guess. So I'll leave it with that. Much love to you, Franklin. Everyone in the chat, take it easy and talk soon. Much love.
Respect, honor. It's been an honor being here with you, brother, with everybody in the chat. It's been an honor here. And thank you very much for your joining my channel. Big love and big blessings to you. That's the Commander HHL. Sending you all. If anybody wants to sponsor the channel at all, the money I spend on StreamYard and what have you. Believe it or not, it cost me money to be here. So if any of you want to pay that back, you can go onto my Patreon. Patreon's probably even an easier bet. I'm also going to be uploading a lot more content that's going to be on Patreon and here. Sending you all big love, big blessings. I haven't got anything behind any firewalls or money walls. But like you guys can support there if you want. Om Shanti, take it easy, keep it real, keep it sweet, and don't forget, life is beautiful. Make it beautiful, keep it beautiful, and become the beauty that you see in life. Om Shanti.